Akron, Ohio, representing Team Popping the Boys, the headline god, Jeremy Lambert, and his co-host, speaking out of Atlanta, Georgia, representing more than one royal family, the king of indie viewing, Stephen Jensen. And this is the Spotlight on Fightful.
Welcome, everyone, to the Spotlight on Fightful. I'm Chairman Lambert. That's Stephen Jensen.
I'm here.
Jumping in here.
I'm here.
It is December. It is Thursday, December 5th. Jensen, how are you?
Oh, doing good, man. Doing good. Just waking up and ready to snap into this episode of the Spotlight on Fightful Overbooked. Thank you very much for everyone who's joining us bright and early here on Thursday morning. And we got a good show planned for y'all. A lot of good stuff going on in the wrestling world. Good interview at the end of the show with Tim Bosby, Action Wrestling World Champion. So yeah, Minnesota Vikings keep getting wins, 10-2. Love to see it. Hey, your Carolina Panthers are playing a lot better, man. A lot better. So you got some stuff to look forward to in the football world too. But yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm well. I don't watch football, but I'll take your word for it.
Oh, you haven't been watching? Adam Thielen he came back and he's been playing great. And Bryce Young's been playing great since they put him back in. So
Andy Dalton's not the quarterback anymore?
No, he got injured. He got injured a few weeks ago, and then they got Bryce Young. They put Bryce Young back out there, and he's been playing good. He's been playing really good. And it helps to have a guy like Thielen back for a young quarterback like Bryce Young, which was like the whole point of them getting Thielen to begin with last season. But he really opens it up for them a lot. Like he gets open, especially in the red zone. He's super helpful for a guy like Bryce Young. But I like the Panthers, like no joke, have legitimately been playing like decent football lately. They've been looking pretty good. So I'm happy to see that for Thielen. And for you going forward, yeah, my Vikings just keep winning. So we'll see. It's going to come. The NFC North is crazy because the Detroit Lions are the best they've ever been right now. In the history of their franchise, they're the best they've ever been. So we're having to compete with that. And then also the Packers are having a really good season as well. So it's like these three powerhouse teams in the NFC North. The Bears have slipped, and they've got their coach fired and everything. Well, the coach got himself fired by making some bonehead decisions. But yeah, and this isn't a football podcast, so people don't really want to hear me talk about all this stuff. So we won't. That's all I'll say. But I mean, y'all got to understand. I love the NFL season, and it's really short, and it only comes around, for part of the year. And my team is massively overperforming based on like what the projections at the beginning of the season were. The over-under for the Vikings wins this season on the Vegas lines was like, I think it was like 6 games or 6.5 games that they'd win. And they're already at 10 at the beginning of December, which is like, which is huge. So, anyways, anything else going on?
I don't think so.
No. I don't think so either. Not a whole lot. We got plenty of wrestling to talk about though. So
yeah, that sounds super cool.
Yeah.
I need to finish the story. In the WWE, the story never finishes.
CM Punk is owed a favor by Paul Heyman. What do you think this favor is?
So I don't know exactly. You might have better ideas than I do, honestly. But
I've got a lot of ideas. I don't know if they're good, but I got plenty.
Well, so on Monday, I like that segment, by the way, on Monday, where CM Punk came out. He basically said that he's trying to carve his path to WrestleMania, and that he clearly wants a world title. That's like that, world title / main event of WrestleMania is like, main event of WrestleMania is probably the main goal for CM Punk after all these years. That's like the one thing he never achieved. But he's basically saying, like, I could use the Royal Rumble to get there. I could use Elimination Chamber to get there, but either way, he has a favor from Paul Heyman in his back pocket. I don't know exactly that's gonna wind up being, but at some point they've got to do CM Punk versus Roman. Like, I feel like this is all kind of a big catalyst for that at some point, but I don't think that's going to be like the WrestleMania main event. I think we're going to get CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. But I don't know if they're going to do that before WrestleMania or they're going to wait all the way until WrestleMania to do that. But they obviously, jump started that again on Monday. That's been brewing since CM Punk's return last year, and of course with Punk getting injured. But I like the back and forth between those two guys because Punk was basically like, I was interested in you a year ago because you were a champion and you aren't anymore. So, like, stop bothering me basically. And Rollins was like, dude, you've always been a snake and I've been waiting to drop you this entire time. And here's my chance to do it. And, there's like real feelings between those two as well. I don't know how much that's been mended behind the scenes over the last year or whatever, but there was legitimate heat between those two guys for a long time. And then you also have Sami Zayn in that mix that led to their match on Monday. But I liked how he was mixed in too, and how Sami Zayn basically, blamed Seth Rollins for making Roman Reigns the monster that he is because of stabbing him in the back with that chair, breaking up the Shield all those years ago, a decade ago. But Rollins was able to bring up to Sami, like, hey, man, you're not totally clean in this either. You did the same exact thing I did to Roman, and you went back to him. So I thought the whole story and all those layers with all those three guys was really well done. And you can feel the animosity and like the real hatred between CM Punk and Seth Rollins, which I think makes this even better. So I think ultimately we're going to get CM Punk in the main event of one of the two nights of WrestleMania, probably against Seth Rollins. I don't know. But I don't know exactly how Paul Heyman's going to figure into this. I just imagine it'll be a help with either winning the Rumble, winning Elimination Chamber, or if somebody close to Heyman has the shot, or like Roman has, like, somehow Paul Heyman is going to get CM Punk in the position to get the main event of WrestleMania, I feel like is going to be, but I don't know exactly how they do that. You probably have better ideas than me, so I want to hear what you got to say about it.
I got a few ideas. One being Punk and Roman. Doesn't matter what title's on the line. Roman Reigns is always the main event of WrestleMania. And that's been the case for how many years now? He's always been the champion, but Roman's always the main event, whether it's night one, night two. Or maybe this is Punk. He obviously wants the main event, WrestleMania. Easiest way to main event WrestleMania is probably facing Roman Reigns, because chances are that's going to be a highly important match. Title, no title. Roman could have the title back by that point, for all we know. So I think it could be just Punk going to Heyman and saying, look, this is my favor. This is what I want. And then Heyman has to do this, and then that upsets Roman. And then you get into a big interaction between Punk and Roman. Because even though they teamed at Survivor Series, their interactions were... Their big interaction was a pre-tape, was a cinematic pre-tape. So they haven't had the big in-ring face-to-face like we saw with Punk and Rollins this past week. I've seen people theorize that being number 30 in the Rumble is the favor, which possible. I've seen people even theorize that just like he gets a world title shot, like Paul Heyman pulls some strings, basically bullies Adam Pearce into giving Punk a shot at Gunther. And maybe he beats Gunther at the Rumble or Elimination Chamber or the Raw Netflix debut. There's plenty of big shows between now and WrestleMania for Punk to face Gunther. One theory that I find very interesting is Steve Austin. And Paul Heyman obviously has a long connection with Steve Austin. And Heyman is able to get in storyline, get Steve Austin to come back and do a match with CM Punk. So there's a bunch of theories out there. I think it could be as big as they want it to be, which something big would be Austin and Punk. Roman and Punk would obviously be big. It could also just be something, you're number 30 in the Rumble. It can be kind of whatever they want it to be, because it's an open-ended thing of, hey, I owe you a favor. You know, when somebody owes you an open-ended favor, you can potentially cash that in for something gigantic, or you can potentially cash that in for, hey, go pick me up a Hershey bar from the grocery store. This is what I'm asking of you. So we shall see how it plays out, but there's plenty that they could make of this.
I hadn't considered the Steve Austin thing. I like the idea of that potentially. You know, I do think Steve Austin will be involved in WrestleMania this year. I don't know if that means a full-on match, or if that means a run-in to, you know, part of this, probably the biggest puzzle piece of all of this is The Rock going to be wrestling at WrestleMania or not this year? That's like a big question mark and that's going to create a massive trickle down for everything else, because like if The Rock's going to wrestle, you'd imagine we'll get The Rock versus Cody, but there's also the chance you could get The Rock versus Roman. Like, I mean, so there's two major roads or a triple threat between those three or something. Like there's a lot of roads that would, you know, completely depend on if The Rock's going to be there or not. And that also goes for Steve Austin. Like if The Rock's going to wrestle at WrestleMania in the main event, if you do The Rock versus Cody, this would be the opportunity for Austin to come in, you know, glass shatters, and, you know, Austin help save Cody, similar to what we saw last year with like Cena and Undertaker and Jey Uso, and like everything that happened in the main event there, where we thought Austin was going to be in that Undertaker spot and wasn't. So like this being in Vegas, it seems like Austin wants to do it, but he also like, it looks like Austin's been getting in really good shape. He's obviously stayed in good shape this whole time, but like he seems to be heavily motivated from like the little bit I've seen as far as like clips of him like training and stuff, like, you know, just little pictures and stuff here or there. It's like he might be trying to have a match. So, and obviously he pulled it off with Owens. Like I thought they did a good job a couple of years ago at WrestleMania when Austin had his first match in like 2 decades or whatever it was. So, but once again, I think this all depends on The Rock, because like if Austin's going to make an appearance at WrestleMania, I think you would save that massive pop and the glass shattering and everything for the WrestleMania main event, like for him to come in and get that massive moment and like stunner The Rock. But if The Rock isn't going to wrestle, I think it's more likely that Austin would wrestle, because then he comes in and has that moment and has like a full-on match. We finally get him and CM Punk. But I mean, I could see them doing I could see them doing Steve Austin and Punk maybe either way. It really depends on if Austin's trying to have a full-on match or not. But you know, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces. This WrestleMania might be even more confusing and, you know, have more twists and turns even than last year, maybe, as crazy as that is, because we just don't know if The Rock's going to be involved. I expect him to, but there's a lot of like speculation that he won't be. So I don't know. Do you have any extra like insight on that at all? Like, did you have any, what's your feeling as far as like, do you think The Rock's going to wrestle? Because I think that's just going to affect a lot of the stuff on the card, whether he's going to be wrestling or not.
I only know what Sean has reported on Fightful Select, and what he has reported is Sean noted that he doesn't believe The Rock will be working WrestleMania. Sportskeeda, Dr. Chris Featherstone also said that creative was operating as if he wouldn't be working the event. You know, Dave Meltzer posted a while ago that Rock had informed WWE that he wouldn't be available. Rock, of course, went to Instagram and was like, don't believe any of that shit. And WWE is basically, it seems like they're trying to quell expectations of, we're not working on creative for The Rock. It doesn't seem like The Rock's going to be there. Obviously, with The Rock, anything can change at a moment's notice. If The Rock decides, I'm coming in, I'm working, he's going to work, and they're going to work things around him, and they're going to change things around him. But it seems like, based on the reporting right now, he's not going to wrestle at the event, which feels absurd to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That they would go through everything they went through last year. He would show up at Bad Blood and he would not do WrestleMania, because why do all the stuff you did last year, especially the Raw after WrestleMania, when you said to Cody, our story is not finished, and you're not going to work WrestleMania this year? Maybe they think they can hold it off another year, and it's like, okay, well, we'll just do it at 42. But you're another year older. Who knows how the landscape is going to change in a whole other year? Like, it just seems like if you have it, maybe you should do it. Look, maybe The Rock is just being petty, and he was supposed to wrestle Roman at 40, and all the Cody crybabies got up in arms, and The Rock's like, you know what? I'm just going to come in and ruin a couple plans when I want to, but otherwise I'm just not going to show up. No, we're not going to do this match. I'm not going to give you this. This is what I wanted to do last year. You guys whined about it. So now I'm just going to come in, maybe screw things up every now and again, but you're not going to get the big match that we kind of teased and we promised. Not promised, but certainly teased. You're not going to get that match because you had to cry about it, and you had to do Roman and Cody last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be hilarious if The Rock was actually that petty about it, considering he's like an owner of the company at this point. So, but it's Terrifying Wrestling in the chat has some decent ideas. I see what, so he says Cody versus Orton, McIntyre versus Punk versus Rollins, and Roman versus Rock. Those are all WrestleMania matches he's throwing out there, or they're throwing out there. I don't know the gender of Terrifying Wrestling here in the chat, but if The Rock, let me ask you that: if The Rock wrestles, let's just assume that he is going to wrestle. Do you do The Rock and Cody because of the build after last year's WrestleMania, with them like trading title belts and teasing all of this? And of course, Cody was in the ring with Roman Reigns when The Rock returned at Bad Blood. Or do you just go ahead and you do The Rock versus Roman, since it's right there in front of you and like this is your shot at it? Would you do Rock and Roman or Rock and Cody if you had to choose one or the other?
I'd probably do Rock and Cody.
For the world title, for Cody, like Cody's still the champion in WrestleMania.
No, the people's title's on the line, and The Rock wins.
No, oh my gosh! So title versus title, and The Rock and Cody leaves with both.
No, Cody's not the champion. Why is Cody's not the champion?
When will he not be the champion?
He loses it to Kevin Owens at Saturday Night's Main Event. He loses it to Roman Reigns at Royal Rumble. He loses it to Randy Orton at Elimination Chamber. He loses it to John Cena at Saturday Night's Main Event. You want me to name more times he can lose it?
No, I think he's going to retain in all of those. But I'm interested in the Owens one at Saturday Night's Main Event for sure, coming up here soon. Cody versus Orton, though, is a good option. It's a really good option if they want to hold off on that until WrestleMania.
You happy with a non-title match, Cody versus Randy Orton?
That would be for the title in that scenario.
I don't think it would be.
I think, because I don't think you need the title for Rock versus Roman if you're going to do that. I would keep it. Yeah.
I don't know if Cody and Orton's main eventing then.
Well, you got two nights. Obviously, Rock and Roman would main event one of those, and then you'd probably have, I guess, theoretically, you'd have CM Punk versus. I don't know if they'll do a triple threat with Punk, Rollins, and McIntyre. I think it's more likely we just get Punk versus Rollins or Punk versus. I mean, Punk versus Austin night 1, Rock versus Roman night 2. That would be, and then especially just star power wise, marquee wise, that'd be two pretty huge main events. I mean, I don't like the idea of Cody not being the main event of WrestleMania, but if those were the two main events and he was the co-main of one of those against Orton with the title on the line, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I'm really interested to see what they do with McIntyre, though. He's the one I feel like who gets kind of left out in this situation, but they got to build something up good for him because he definitely deserves a big WrestleMania match also.
Well, there's only two main events. Unless they move to 3 nights, you can only have 2 main events.
Yeah, of course. I'm just saying, with Terrifying Wrestling putting those matches out there just got me thinking, like, yeah, what are they going to do with McIntyre though? Also,
okay, let's work on the assumption that The Rock's not at WrestleMania, because that seems to be the plan right now.
Okay. Then I would do Cody versus Roman again, probably. I'd probably do a trilogy.
Oh, Roman's winning that one.
I would hope that he wouldn't, but I could, there's a good chance he would. I don't know. Because if you can get, also there's going to have to do with Austin. Like, can Austin go or not? I mean, if you can do Austin versus Punk as one of the main events of WrestleMania, like, you do that for sure. And then, yeah, I'd probably do. But then what do you do with Rollins? You do Rollins and McIntyre? I mean, we don't have to sit here and book the entire WrestleMania card. It's just so much of it depends on whether The Rock's going to be there or not. Like I said, that's going to trickle down the entire thing. If he's not going to be there, I can't think of a better option than Cody versus Roman again. I'd personally like to see them both have different matches, just because, change it up a little bit. But the story heading into that, and then main eventing 3 WrestleManias in a row would be pretty cool. That's probably where I'd head. Cena also. I forgot about Cena having his retirement year. He's going to have something big. I don't know if he'll be in the main event, but Cena we got to consider as well for a match with probably one of the people we're talking about right now. So
I think Cena could potentially, I don't think you need to do this at WrestleMania, but I could see them doing it. I could see Cena and Cody with the title on the line, and Cena going after the record.
At WrestleMania? Yeah.
I don't think you need to do that at WrestleMania. I think you can put that on a different pay-per-view, because WrestleMania sells itself. You don't need John Cena chasing the record to boost WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania. You can use that to boost something like Money in the Bank or any other international pay-per-view they might do.
I agree. I mean, I do think for sure we're going to get Cody versus Cena during Cena's retirement run. I feel like that's a no-brainer to have the two of them in a ring one-on-one at some point. So yeah, well, I mean, we'll talk more WrestleMania and where that's all heading the closer we get to it. But I mean, the Royal Rumble is right around the corner, which is huge. WrestleMania season is almost back, which is crazy.
There's still 2 Saturday nights main events before Royal Rumble.
Sure, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, in general, the Royal Rumble is less than 2 months away, which is like we're pretty much already like getting into WrestleMania season. Like, CM Punk's talking about his road to WrestleMania, finishing his story. But yeah, the Saturday night's main events, those will be big shows.
There's 2 Saturday night's main events, and there's the Raw and Netflix debut. All 3 of those are going to be pretty big shows. Like, I think Owens is beating Cody for the title next week. I don't think it's going to be a long reign. I think Cody's going to win it back potentially at the Rumble, but I think Owens is going to win that match.
I'm going to choose Cody, but I'm always going to choose Cody, so that's not any surprise to anybody. And I'm not necessarily mad about that either. I've talked about that too. Like, if Owens, because of the story and the build for all this, if Owens was to beat Cody for the title, it wouldn't be the end of the world for me, especially knowing that Cody will probably win it back for WrestleMania. Unless, I mean, plans could totally get derailed. I mean, like, there's just so many options, and the roster is so stacked right now that, like, there's just so many ways it can go with this stuff. But as far as, like, the initial kind of question and topic, I don't know what Paul Heyman is going to do to help CM Punk, but I think we're both essentially in agreement that whatever that favor is going to lead to CM Punk main eventing one of the nights of WrestleMania.
Most likely. Again, it could be very possible that it's a Royal Rumble spot. It's number 30 in the Rumble. That doesn't necessarily mean CM Punk's going to main event a night at WrestleMania. Obviously, the hope, if you're CM Punk, is you win the Rumble because you have number 30, but not a guarantee there. Not a guarantee. But yes, his plan is WrestleMania. He is very openly on the TV show and certainly in media talked about he wants the main event, a WrestleMania pay-per-view. Now that there's 2 nights, that becomes a little bit easier until The Rock comes in and he's like, Wait a second. Punk wants the main event, and then I'm going to main event both nights just to ensure this dude doesn't main event.
Well, we know their history also. That would be quite the full circle moment for The Rock to do that to CM Punk again after all these years. So
kind of funny.
I would think it's funny. I would probably mark out pretty hard for something like that. It would be funny. But I mean, at this point too, it's just like CM Punk's just got to stay healthy and like get to WrestleMania. And they wanted to have this spot for him last year. And he got hurt. So hopefully he's able to stay uninjured. And, I'm for his sake, I do hope he gets to WrestleMania. I do hope he gets to main event one of the 2 nights of WrestleMania for his sake, because that's clearly a very big thing for him. And really the only thing he hasn't accomplished in the professional wrestling business is that. So it'd be good for him to accomplish that. Just a matter of like who his opponent is going to be. I love the idea of Austin, though. I hadn't even really considered that, but I do think that that's probably the best possible scenario, unless you want to go unless Roman wins one of the titles heading into WrestleMania and you do Roman versus CM Punk for the title, which I would be down for that too. That would make a lot of sense also if they wanted to go that route. But then also you got to work in Rollins. Like there's just so many moving pieces.
The other WWE spotlight is Big E has been kicked to the curb by New Day. Came out, he wanted to be the manager for New Day, Kofi and Woods. And they said, it's been almost 3 years. You broke your neck. Big deal. Kurt Angle broke his neck. Steve Austin broke his neck. Edge broke his neck. They were all back. You didn't even need surgery. Don't just come out here now and act like you're going to be our manager when you have a new desk job, a new wife, or a new girlfriend, sorry. New girlfriend, a new life. Get out of here. We don't need you. It's just us, Oos. Now, Big E walked off sadly. What did you think of this, Jensen?
This was cold, dude. Not like in a bad way. This was like, I mean, a bad way if you're Big E, storyline wise. But this is a hot angle. What they did was ice cold to Big E. Like, it's just like, and I thought that was so well done. I like that they broke up the way that they did, because it wasn't like a predictable, like what we normally get out of a split or a turn or something like that. Because they've been teasing for a while now, and I haven't been as up to date on like the week to week on this story. Like I'm pretty filled in, but not completely. But Woods has been a heel for a little while now, and like Kofi up to this point, they've been like at odds, right? Like trying to figure out, like Kofi hadn't really turned until this segment, right? Where everyone realized like, oh damn, him and Woods are actually on the same page now. And they think that Big E is the problem. And I mean, like I said, I just think this was really, really, really well done. Like Big E's expression in confusion when they were explaining this to him, like he was like he couldn't believe it. He's like, I can't, like, am I really hearing this right now? Like, and he just kept saying in the ring, he's like, that's it, it's over. It's over like this after all this time. And Woods couldn't even look at him. Like Woods is like looking the other direction, and he goes in for a hug on Kofi, and Kofi stops him, and Big E just has to like put his tail between his legs and like just leave the ring and walk up the entrance ramp all sad by himself. In the New Day, or the New Day, whatever you want to call it, like Woods and Kofi, they dap up and they're like, this just us now. And it's like, that was the promo that Woods cut, and everything from Woods and Kofi, I thought was like really, really, really well done. And then of course, like I mentioned, the reaction from Big E was done phenomenally as well. And it's one of those things too, right, where if you look at it from the point of view of the New Day, you kind of understand where they're coming from, which is like even worse. It's like it like works on so many levels, because what they were saying wasn't necessarily untrue either. They're like, and I'm not saying like the berating somebody for not coming back from a neck injury super fast or like on their own timeline. That's one thing. But for them to be saying like, dude, you've been around, like you've been doing the desk job. You have time for your girl. You got time for other stuff you care about. Where have you been for us? And like, it's a dick way of saying that. And it's a dick thing to do to a friend that you've had for that long, and to do it publicly in front of everybody, the way that the New Day did, which is obviously designed because it's them turning heel officially on him. But once again, like they didn't really lie about anything either. And like, you could just tell Big E was just like, it was almost like, dude, if I would have known there was these problems, I would have been here for you guys. Like y'all didn't say anything to me about this. You know what I mean? Like I just thought this whole segment was really, really well done. There's not a whole lot more I could probably say other than like, I like that we didn't just get like the New Day just reuniting again. Just like, all right, let's just be everything. It's all good. Woods, Big E's back, and we're just gonna do our thing again, eat pancakes and bootios, and dance around and stuff like the old days. And it wasn't like Woods, attacking somebody or like, it just wasn't what we traditionally get out of a split like this, especially for a team that's been around for a decade, and especially this team that Woods. For years, for a decade now, Woods in many interviews has said that he never wants the group to break up. He was like, this is the kind of thing where it's a rare thing in wrestling that you can have three brothers like this, like three best friends that have been in this group together for so long, and just nobody ever turns. And it's just like a friendship that actually stands the test of time, was kind of like their vision for a long time. But at a certain point too, it's like, this has been around for 10 years. Y'all are all still, outside of Big E, I don't know what his future looks like, but Woods and Kofi, of course, still active performers at the moment. It's like, at least you're getting something out like, it's better than the New Day just ending with nothing, or them trying to go back to the same old song and dance they were doing before. Like, this is, I don't know. There's obviously I really, really like this. How did you feel about it?
It was very sad in a good way. Obviously, like, it was great television. They, as you mentioned, they've talked about never wanting to break up, or at least not in a traditional wrestling sense of, we're going to do some big turn and all be enemies after this. Woods and Kofi are still together. Big E, I think it left questions about Big E's future, and that's where my questions are, because Big E says, I'm going to be your manager until I'm ready to go, until I'm healthy, until I'm back in the ring. And Kofi, or I think it's Woods actually, it's like, let's be honest about things. You're not coming back to the ring. You're not going to wrestle again. And I kind of feel like that's the truth. And if that is the truth, this segment makes a lot of sense, because it's an easy way to turn New Day and get real heat on them. That isn't just typical pro wrestling, hey, we're bad guys. Like, this was obviously very emotional 10 years of history heat right here. And if Big E's not going to wrestle again, because there's no physicality in this segment, they didn't jump him, they didn't beat him down or anything like that. It was all words. So I'm kind of the belief that Big E's not going to wrestle again, and there's not going to be this kind of big triumphant moment of Big E returning and taking out his former friends and that kind of split. It is going to just be, I don't know how often we see Big E after this, outside of like kickoff panels and pre-shows and things like that. And, and if he does that stuff, then they got to navigate when he's talking about New Day, how you work that in there. Cause I'm sure there's going to be some sourness to things when he speaks. So it was really well done though. And now I think you got to really go full bore with Kofi and Woods. You can't do this segment and then have them do a bunch of nonsense after this. Like, they just lost to Alpha Academy last week. And of course that was the basis of Woods and Kofi in the backstage segment, the argument between the two, which was really good. And, bringing up Kofi losing to Brock Lesnar in 7 seconds, and how Woods hasn't accomplished anything outside of King of the Ring. Like, that was a really good segment there. But now you've got to like do something with New Day. And I think an easy thing to do is obviously put the tag team titles on them, because those titles are not doing much of anything. That's even been referenced on television. It's like, yeah, you guys don't even defend these titles that much. JD McDonough and Finn Balor are the champions.
I legitimately,
I can tell you were thinking.
I legitimately had forgotten who the champions were. Wow. Yeah.
So, like they should at least put the titles on them, and then you kind of go from there. But I also think there's more to do with them as a heel. One is a heel group, and two is just as a heel singles talents. Like, I think you could easily put a mid-card title on them. I know right now that picture is a little clouded, not clouded so much in that like there's no clear picture, not muddy in so much that there's no clear picture, more of like Braun Breaker's the champion and he's probably not going to lose that title anytime soon. You got Sheamus, who very easily, at some point, they're going to make Sheamus, and I say make by actually giving him the Grand Slam championship and giving him the Intercontinental title, the one title that he has not won in WWE. At some point, they're going to cash that chip that they have. So the picture is very clear. It's just, it's not clear for a New Day to potentially fit into that spot. That's what I'm trying to convey here.
Yeah. No, I think that all makes perfect sense. Like, the most obvious thing, like you mentioned, would probably be to get the tag team titles on them ASAP. I mean, we've just seen them be the champions so many times, but this is a new, fresh, presentation for the New Day. I wouldn't be surprised either if like their theme song changed and like, you know what I mean? Like, I could see like a total like their gear and everything about like their whole vibe and everything. I think is going to be different, which is, I mean, these guys, we could sit here and do an entire podcast on just how important the New Day group has been, just in general, like how important these three guys have been and the things that they've accomplished over the last 10 years, especially starting as a group that was supposed to be like kind of like the motivational speaker type group. And they were very bland at first and the crowd was not taking to them. The New Day sucks chants like started like immediately. And for them to like have the success that they've had has been obviously incredibly cool to see. And they're legitimately one of the best. I mean, they're maybe the best trios act like the WWE's ever had. I mean, you can make the argument for like the Shield and stuff like that, but the New Day, just the longevity, even the longevity alone, not even mentioning all the championships and stuff along the way, and the world titles that Big E and Kofi both had. And I'd still love one day for Woods to get a world title himself. I think he deserves it just like those other guys did. So like, but then even looking at it just as a tag team, a 3-person tag team, it's just like, their tag team accomplishments, I mean, just super, super, super impressive. But at the same time, like, how many times, like, there was just like nowhere else for it to go at this point, especially if Big E isn't cleared and can't wrestle right now. Like, you got to figure something to do with Kofi and Woods. And kind of the most obvious thing would have been to just kind of split the whole group up, right? Like, in like Woods does his own thing, Kofi does his own thing. But I like that they went the route that they're going, and Woods and Kofi are staying together. I think there's a better chance of them having success in the immediate future as a tag team, as a heel tag team. And then you could obviously do a split between those two at some point down the line, or have them go for singles titles at some point down the line as well. Like, none of this is going to prevent that stuff from happening in the future. But right now, in the immediate short term, I would definitely say get them in that tag team title picture. I mean, I'm not even trolling or trying to be funny. I legitimately completely forgot that Finn Balor and JD McDonough had those titles, and I'm probably not alone with that. And like, it feels like there would be no harm in putting those titles right on the New Day again and have them have this run as a heel team. But with Balor and McDonough being heels, I don't know if they'd have to maybe have a multi-team match or something where the New Day comes out with the titles or something. Because they're having because Balor has been attacking Gunther, right?
Yeah, Balor's going to face Gunther at Saturday night's main event.
So, like, the tag titles have really been kind of secondary to McDonough and Balor anyways. And Gunther's essentially become a babyface now, too, in the process also, which is interesting. And I don't necessarily dislike that. I think Gunther will well as he gets babyface reactions anyways a lot of the time because he's just so good in the ring. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, we're on the same page as far as like we both like the New Day segment, and I mean, in them not attacking Big E, I think made it hit even 10 times harder than like if they would have beat Big E down, it still would have been effective. But there was just something about just how cold it was for them to say what they said to Big E, and just like I mentioned before, Woods wouldn't even look at him, and Kofi wouldn't embrace him, and Big E just had to like sadly just walk away by himself. And like I feel like that was probably the most effective way they probably could have done this, especially if Big E isn't cleared and like can't do stuff physically. Like this was done to perfection in my opinion. And I really didn't see it coming. Like I said before, I expected Kofi to be the good guy, and like at the very least I thought maybe Woods would bail on those guys, but I thought the most likely scenario was they were all just going to like kind of work their differences out, and Big E was going to be like that bridge, like he was going to mend the bridge with everybody, and like we were just going to get back to like the good old New Day group, and Big E was going to be out there with them again whether he was wrestling or not, and we were just going to get back to having fun with the New Day. And like they went the total 180 opposite direction with that, and I didn't expect Kofi to turn in the way that he did all at the same time. So this was done perfectly.
Yeah, and now we shall see where it kind of leads with the New Day. And again, if Big E is going to wrestle again or not, I hope he's able to, just because he's a very entertaining wrestler and personality. He's very good on the pre-shows and the post shows. Like he's very good on those. Like so, he has a role there if that's what they continue to do. He's able to live a comfortable life, which is the most important thing when it comes to this kind of stuff. It would be sad if his last in-ring moment is sadly the overhead belly to belly where he landed wrong on it. And that's the end of what we saw from Big E. So hopefully he can do some type of match at some point just to have a good final kind of memory. We shall see.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hopefully Woods gets, or sorry, hopefully Big E gets that. But I'm right there with you. Like his health is obviously the most important thing. Like if he can't medically do it, or like he doesn't feel comfortable or whatever, like I totally get that. But I'm with you too. Like it would be nice. It'd be nice for him to at least be able to go out there and have at least one more match that, didn't end so tragically like the one that, put him down for this injury that he's dealing with for so long. So yeah, wrestling's brutal, man. Wrestling's brutal. Like that was such a freak injury. And like, look how, I mean, you never know. You can get thrown over somebody's head like that. And I mean, this happens. You can jump off the entrance ramp and you roll your ankle and you're out for a year. You can catch someone on a suicide dive a little bit wrong, and both guys. I mean, like there's just so many. This is such a dangerous. We take so much for granted how dangerous professional wrestling is, and this is just another. It's a really sad example of it, but luckily for Big E, he has the gift of gab, and like he's very charismatic, and like he can do things outside of the ring. Like he does real. I'm not even a college football fan, but I've tuned in to see him on like the college game days and stuff like that. Like he's, luckily for Big E, he can have a life outside of the ring, which is super, super fortunate. So
let's get into AEW spotlights.
Over 1 million fans and a great number in the demo tuned in. It was a great show, and I think it's been a run of great shows.
AEW Continental Classic continues. It continued on Wednesday's Dynamite with Kyle Fletcher and Claudio Castagnoli picking up victories. What have you made? And we had matches on Collision as well. One, Will Ospreay got his first win. Juice Robinson, unfortunately injured, out of the tournament. Commander takes his place. Fletcher won on that show as well, beating Beast Mortos. And then we had Daniel Garcia and Kazuchika Okada go to a draw. So they each pick up a point. What have you made of the Continental Classic so far, Jensen?
So as far as like as far as the Collision stuff, I mean, I understand Okada and Garcia going to a draw, like both having titles and stuff, but I don't want this to become a whole conversation about them not needing this Continental Championship to begin with. I've talked about that ad nauseum over the last year. And I feel the same about the TNT title. So unfortunately, I feel like the titles that Garcia and Okada both hold, I don't think are even necessary to be on the show. I understand with the tournament, you want like a trophy or like a title belt, but I feel like it's something that could be like a yearly thing, or you can just have this merge with the international championship and still do the tournament and accomplish the same thing. But that's another conversation in itself. As far as like the match, what was the other match I missed from Collision that just now?
There was Will Ospreay against Juice Robinson and Kyle Fletcher and Beast Mortos.
Yes. Juice Robinson is hurt now, isn't he? He's going to be out for a while. That's unfortunate. Yeah. Last night on the show, so the first of the two Continental Classic matches last night on Dynamite was Kyle Fletcher over Shelton Benjamin. I thought that match was awesome. That was great stuff. Kyle Fletcher, it's pretty obvious. I mean, he gets a huge win over Will Ospreay at Full Gear, and you can tell he's being massively pushed right now in the company. So it wasn't surprising to see him beat Shelton Benjamin, but I liked the way that they did it because it was a really good back and forth match. Shelton looked great. Shelton's looking better right now than he ever has in his entire career, which is like such a testament to like that guy and his ability and his talent. He's always been great. He's always been capable of being this. But it's cool that AEW is actually giving him the opportunity to be presented in the way that, you know, obviously he had good moments in the WWE. He had a long career in the WWE. Like, it's not like he was nothing there by any means. I mean, he's in my opinion, he's a WWE Hall of Fame level guy, you know, right now. But I think that he's just taken so much more seriously as a singles competitor in AEW than he really ever was in the WWE. The closest we got in the WWE was like some IC title reigns that were like pretty decent. You know, we had that huge match with Shawn Michaels, everyone always remembers. He had that, but I'll never forget like him beating Triple H on Raw one night, and then everyone, myself included, being like, oh, he's the next guy up, like he is going to be a main eventer going forward. And it has never really happened for him. AEW, he can at least come over here and have awesome, just banger matches with all these guys he's never wrestled before. So I thought the match itself was great, and I liked the finish because, you know, Fletcher still gets the dirty pin with the tights and, you know, cheats to win. So Shelton still is quote unquote protected in the loss. Kyle Fletcher's a heel, so it makes sense that he would cheat. And also, I mentioned this last week. I was like, the Hurt Syndicate are baby faces. But so there's like this whole dynamic of all these AEW performers we're always talking about, of like that gray area that so many of them are in. The Hurt Syndicate are they're heels technically, and even after Shelton lost, I really liked the way that that the Hurt Syndicate dealt with that. They were backstage and they're like, "This isn't what we do, Shelton. Like we're not here to lose. We're here to hurt people." And they just beat everyone up backstage after that to like get it out of their system and kind of feel like winners again before the end of the night. But yeah, I mean, so yeah, I thought that this was all really well done, and Shelton Benjamin was getting massive babyface reactions throughout the match, and I think that that's going to continue to happen for the Hurt Syndicate. Like the fans want to cheer for Shelton and MVP and Lashley, so I think that AEW probably needs to. I shouldn't say they need to do this because once again they leave so many of their talents in that gray area of between a heel and between a babyface, that tweener position. But I feel like AEW, in my opinion, should listen to the crowd and turn the Hurt Syndicate, just like make them baby faces. Like they can still do everything they're doing right now. Like they don't even have to stop beating up random people backstage and hurting people and stuff. Like they don't have to change anything. You just have them fight bad guys that people hate. You know, I think it would totally work because the fans want to cheer them anyway. So that's my takeaways from that one. And then with the main event, I thought that match was really well done. Also, Claudio defeating Brody King. Same type of thing with like, you know, Claudio, keeps his heat. He gets the win after, distracting the ref, hitting a low blow, dick kick, in the neutralizer. So like he's a heel and he wins in a heelish way. Brody is quote unquote protected because of the way that Claudio won. Wheeler Yuta got involved, which made Brody look even kind of more unstoppable because like he ate a psycho knee and then still kicked out and stuff from Yuta. But a big takeaway from that is Brody King is, I've been saying it for weeks, he's one of the most over guys in the entire AEW roster. Like he gets loud reactions. The fans want to cheer for him. All these moves he does, like people are doing, woof, woof, woof. I mean, they're into it. Like they want to see this guy go out there and do his thing. And I feel like AEW once again really needs to listen to that and really consider that. And I know that they are. I mean, he's gotten a lot of big wins and stuff, but I think that Brody King is someone they really need to consider for a strong push towards like a legitimate world title feud, or at the very least, one of the other major singles titles in AEW. I think that the fans are ready for it. Brody's like wrestling wise and stuff, he's been ready for it since his AEW debut. I mean, he's ready back when he was in Ring of Honor. He's always been a really talented guy, but now he's really, really over also with the crowd as a singles guy. So like, those are my takeaways from the Continental Classic. Everything I said about Shelton and the Hurt Syndicate, and I think Fletcher, it makes sense that they're massively pushing him. It makes sense that he won that match, and it makes sense the way they did both of these matches. I would have preferred Brody to win personally, but I also, they got to make the Death Riders look a certain way too. They got to be at a certain level, and it's the Continental Classic. It's a round robin tournament, so like they weren't gonna have Claudio like lose out, but I don't think he's gonna win the whole tournament either. So like, yeah, there's kind of a lot of layers, a lot of stuff to consider. So how do you feel about it? Like, how do you? I guess more specifically about the matches last night. Like, how do you feel about both of the Continental Classic matches I was just kind of talking about?
Shelton Fletcher was very good, and Brody King and Claudio I thought was better. That's not a knock on Shelton Fletcher or anything. I just preferred that match. I mean, the biggest thing is like the crowd was actually very good. Crowds in AEW have been a little cold for the past few weeks, and the crowd was into certainly those matches. They weren't into everything on this show. The Dynamite Dozen Battle Royal didn't really hit, and then they're going where they're going with that. But the Continental Classic, this is AEW at its best. Just great wrestling matches between two great wrestlers with some stakes and some kind of side stories into it as well. The side story of Kyle Fletcher certainly being the heel, but riding the momentum of the Don Callis family, grabbing the ropes for the win. And then Claudio kind of looking like a beast in beating Brody King, and the trajectory of the Death Riders, which we'll talk about here in a second, with Jon Moxley being a target. But like this is AEW when they are at their best. Is the wrestling is the focal point, and there are kind of stories around what is happening with the wrestling. And we saw it last year in the Continental Classic. That's when, they did the Continental Classic and Tony Khan was like, put your money where your mouth is and, show up, and this is what we will do. And the fans tuned in for it. And then they kind of went in a different direction throughout most of this year. But when they do stuff like the Continental Classic, this is what hits with a lot of the audience. This is certainly what hits with me, and I don't even like wrestling. Certainly the matches. That's the worst part of wrestling to me. But I thought the Continental Classic so far has been very good. I will say a little cowardly that they did a draw between Okada and Garcia. I thought Garcia should have just won, have him continue to build that momentum coming off winning the TNT title. Okada can lose. It would have been fine. I understand why they did a draw. You don't want either of your champions losing. A draw can be a useful tool because both people still get a point. And so it'll, I assume, play into the later matches when they're both going to be maybe a little bit more desperate because they got a draw instead of a win compared to somebody else in the league that might have the extra win instead of going to a draw. So I understand the purpose of the draw. I don't want them to abuse the draw, but for that match, it made some sense. I just thought Garcia could have won, and it was cowardly that they didn't. The Continental Classic, it was good last year. It's been good this year. I don't think there's been yet that like big kind of standout match. Everything's just been very good, and we haven't had that like, oh, this is the match you gotta really go out of your way to see. It's been, you should watch this stuff when you should watch it as it's happening. You should watch it when you have time, not drop everything. Go watch this match right now.
Did they announce next week is Ospreay and Darby?
I think that's next week. I'd have to look. That might be Holiday Bash, which is 2 weeks, because Winter is Coming is next week. And I don't think that's Ospreay and Darby next week. I'll double check the kind of schedule here.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Holiday Bash is Ospreay and Darby. So let me look. Winter is Coming has Ospreay and Claudio, Brody King, and Ricochet. So yeah, Holiday Bash, which is 2 weeks, has Ospreay and Darby.
Okay, gotcha. Well, those are all banger matches right there, especially Ospreay and Darby. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea of the Continental Classic. My main gripe is just like all the title belts in AEW. Like, and that's not really even like necessarily an issue with the tournament itself. You know what I mean? Like I want to see good matches between, you know, really talented in-ring wrestlers also, and that's what this tournament provides us. So yeah, it's been very, very solid so far, and I think it really does wonders for guys like Brody King, like that, you know, throughout the rest of the year. Yeah.
I hope Brody King gets an established push off of us. Last year he was in the Continental Classic, and you know he did well, but then he lost. The story was more Garcia, because Garcia beat Brody King in his final league match to get his victory. The story is more about him. Brody obviously beating Darby, going toe to toe with Claudio. I don't know if you saw it this morning. Brody's going to be facing David Finlay at Wrestle Dynasty. That might be for the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. It depends if Finlay retains the title at Wrestle Kingdom against Yota Tsuji. But that's a big spot for Brody King, a big singles match against David Finlay. I hope it leads to a sustained singles push for Brody King, because I think he's a guy that deserves it. He certainly worked hard for it. He's a guy you can build that around. Like, you can have a singles push for him. If this is just, hey, Brody King's going to have cool matches and then he's back to doing trio stuff or tag stuff, then I think there's more there.
Yeah, I agree. And just for what it's worth, I wouldn't even be against the idea of Brody King winning the Continental Classic tournament. Like, I really like. I think he's got as good a chance of that as anyone else. I mean, I know there's people like Ospreay and people like Fletcher and stuff. Like, I get that, but like, it could really do wonders for someone like Brody. And a lot of what I'm basing this off of is the reactions he's getting. It isn't just like he's going out there and having good matches. This was even happening a few weeks ago when they did the House of Black, or I guess it was technically it was Malachi and Brody in a tag team against FTR a few weeks ago. And Brody was by far the most over guy of those four in that match. Then, I mean, it's been consistently happening. So whether he wins the tournament or not, I'm 100% with you that I think that he does need a sustainable singles push coming out of this. 100%.
Well, we shall see if that ends up being the case. Otherwise, on AEW Dynamite, we had Jon Moxley being attacked by a returning Orange Cassidy who was dressed as a cameraman. Jay White was also there. Hangman Page was also there. And then Moxley got ran off as the Death Riders were thwarted by these men. And, you know, we shall see if kind of leads to a multi-man match. Christian Cage was also in the background with his contract. That was a talking point as well. What do you make of Mox being a target now?
So this is something I feel like needs to be brought up. My brother, who I bring up occasionally here on this show, he is not a wrestling fan, but he watches a lot of wrestling just by association of being around me. He has not been around in months while I'm watching AEW. He's not a big AEW fan. He was over last night while I was watching AEW Dynamite, and he hadn't seen the show, like I said, in probably, I think the last show he saw was like the debut of MVP, like walking out, and I only remember that because he mentioned that he was like, oh damn, the last time I saw this MVP just came out, because he was like, she's like, Shelton Benjamin's here, Lashley's here. He was like, that's pretty cool. He's like, they're just doing the same thing from WWE, and I was like, pretty much. I mean, it's like the Hurt Syndicate versus it used to be the Hurt Business, but yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. And he was like, it actually got him kind of hyped up. He was like, oh damn, like that's pretty sick. Like I've always liked those guys. But what I'm about to bring up isn't good. So when this happened, when Moxley came out and before the baby faces came out for the save, when Moxley initially came out, my brother was like, ooh, what happened? That was what he said out loud. He said, oh, what happened? And I said, what do you mean? He's like, just no noise. He's like, they're not booing really or cheering. Like what is this? And I was like, oh, well, you know, Moxley's a bad guy now. They're like trying to take over the company. He was really confused because he's like, but they're not really like booing or anything. He was like, I was like, yeah, it's like this is kind of working and it kind of isn't. Like I tried to explain to him they've been trying to do takeover angles for a while now with like various groups and it hasn't been working. But then when the baby faces came out, things really picked up like massively. Like Orange Cassidy, I figured they were going to kind of move on from him in this story after the loss at Full Gear, but I'm totally cool with him still being involved if it's like him and not like him and the conglomeration. If it's like him and Jay White and Hangman Page and Darby Allin, like that's a squad that feels like they could be an actual threat to taking out the Death Riders. So all kind of in one segment, it went from like, this isn't like the crowd's not really reacting to this. This isn't really working was kind of the feeling right when Moxley came out. And then it kind of flipped. And I think it was working a lot better once you realize where they're heading with this stuff. We talked about it last week too. I was like, Hangman Page is still a heel technically on the show. Jay White never really turned babyface, but he's essentially become one. But out of kind of the enemy of the enemy is my friend type situation, we assume that Jay White and Hangman Page were going to align to try to fight off the Death Riders together, which is what is happening. And then once again, you throw in Orange Cassidy back in that mix because of his history with the Death Riders. And then you probably have Darby in that mix as well. Like, so by the end of this, I really liked it. I mean, the crowd was going pretty crazy for Hangman too. I mean, I've been saying it for the last, couple years at this point. I think Hangman is the most interesting character in AEW, really by far. I don't think it's really even close with his layers and like you having to kind of, choose your own adventure as far as like whether he's a heel or a babyface. He's been staying entertaining and interesting the entire time throughout all this. And now it feels like they're finally making kind of a definitive move of Hangman might not change anything about who he is and how he walks and talks and but if he's going after the Death Riders, he's meant to be cheered. So the fans are like they popped big for his buckshot lariat last night. And they've been doing a great job with Jay White. Like, I mean, clearly he's being positioned as legitimately one of the top guys consistently at this point. This is a good rebound for Orange Cassidy too. I mean, if anything, it probably makes the Death Riders look kind of weak in comparison, which might not be great overall. But, because like when I think like just personally, if I had Darby Allin, Jay White, Hangman Page, and Orange Cassidy right now, I don't know. I mean, you can. It's comparable, but I think I'd rather have that squad than like the Death Riders. Like if it like a 1-to-1 comparison, that makes sense.
One thing that I wish we would have seen a little bit last night, which I thought the segment was great. Jay White faces Pac, really good match. Jay White wins. Yuta comes out after the match. Marina Shafir comes out. Orange Cassidy gets revealed. Hangman Page comes out and everything. like Claudio we know is there, but then he has the Continental Classic match at the end. I said this last week of Darby we knew was in the building. Why didn't he come out and go after Moxley after threatening to murder Jon Moxley at the start of the show? Why wouldn't Claudio come out at all of this when he sees his friends doing their usual attack or getting attacked? Why wouldn't he come out in this segment when we know he is there? You can kind of explain it as, well, they're just so worried about the Continental Classic that they're not going to come out for this stuff. I don't love that explanation because they've been a group for far longer, and yeah, sure, the Continental Classic's important and everything, but it also feels like protecting your group or your mission, which in Darby's case last week, your mission was to kill Jon Moxley. In Claudio's case, your mission is to help Jon Moxley and your friends. It feels like you can still do that and still have the Continental Classic stuff going on. Like it's not. And if in Darby's case, since he lost last week, it could be, oh, look, he's too focused on Jon Moxley. That's why he lost to Brody King. In Claudio's case, it's like, look, he is so locked in to not only what's going on with the Death Riders, he's so locked in the Continental Classic that he can do both. Like, this man is a machine. This man is a cyborg type of thing. Like, it can work together instead of it being two separate things. Minor gripe, because otherwise I do think this was very good. And now we're finally getting kind of stars involved with this whole thing, which is the biggest thing. I think Orange Cassidy, I love Orange Cassidy. People didn't view him as the guy just yet because he wasn't. They weren't going to take the title off of Jon Moxley that quickly after Wrestle Dream. So Orange Cassidy was just kind of, hey, he's a guy who makes sense in this spot, but we're not going to put the title on him. Everybody else around him, especially once Private Party and Daniel Garcia broke off and we're doing stuff with the Elite, it was Dark Order, it was Top Flight, it was Action and Andretti, it was those kind of guys. It's like, yeah, they're not going to beat the Death Riders. They're just not. I do wish they got elevated a little bit onto it, because otherwise it's just, oh, Top Flight's having issues. That's that. Dark Order, they're barely on the shows. They're on ROH. That's that. Like, nothing really came out of that, even though it seemed like it was at least a chance to change their personalities a little bit. And they're kind of trying with Leo and Action and Andretti, but that feels more tied to Hurt Syndicate than it does Death Riders at this point. But now we're getting, Hangman Page, Jay White, Orange Cassidy still involved with things. Actual stars who it's like, oh, okay, yeah, these guys might actually be able to challenge Jon Moxley. Hangman makes a lot of sense, obviously, since he's an AEW day one kind of guy. Jay White, I wish it felt a little bit more earned that he was in this spot. And what I mean by that is with the face-off last night, like Jay White's face turn just kind of came out of nowhere. He came back and kind of from the injury and just kind of got locked into a feud with Hangman, who is babyface heel, depending on how you feel about things. Jay White getting the victories over Hangman was a big deal. But the fate, like when all three of like Hangman, Jay White, and Orange Cassidy were in the ring last night, I felt like Jay White didn't feel like as an earned babyface in that spot. Like, he doesn't feel so much as a natural babyface of like, yeah, this is a guy who should be standing up for AEW in this aspect. It just felt like he was there because he was feuding with Hangman, and now he's just in the spot that he's in. I hope that makes sense. Maybe it does. Okay.
No, it does. Well, and the other three guys, as you kind of just mentioned, like Orange Cassidy, Hangman Page, and I'm grouping in Darby Allin in this, even though he wasn't a part of the thing last night, but he's a part of the overall story. Those three guys are all like day one AEW guys. Jay White wasn't. And he never had a legitimate babyface turn, and his wins over Hangman didn't really come out of nowhere necessarily because they had a long history with one another. But Jay White beating Hangman Page twice, coming off of Hangman beating Swerve in like this feud where it looked like Hangman was going to be completely unbeatable going forward. That was strange to me, but it's led to where it's led, and I think it makes sense. Like Hangman, hobbling around and always selling his knee like that. I like the continuity with that.
It's good continuity until he does the buckshot lariat, right? Where you're putting a lot of pressure on your leg, and it's like, oh, okay. Like that's where I just wish he just did like a regular clothesline or something. You can't sell your leg and then do this where you are literally coming down very hard on your leg, and it's like, oh, it hurts, but it doesn't because I still have enough to do this.
Yeah, that's
adrenaline is a hell of a thing, I guess.
True, but that's a very fair point, though. That's a very fair point. But like it's good that they're, because it also gives Hangman outs, like as far as like losing matches and stuff, like because he's just got this like nagging injury that's like always he's like been dealing with. And like the Death Riders can target that too. But yeah, I mean, I guess like what I'm assuming at the next pay-per-view you will get, like a big multi-man match with like both sides going one-on-one. Let me ask you this. Like, do you think, like, how long do you think they do this Death Riders thing? Like, do you think it's working well enough that like you keep stretching this like for another like 3 months, another 6 months? Like how long do you do, like, or do you think that like this AEW team that we're getting right now is one of the better? I mean, I'm assuming we're probably waiting for like the Elite to return and try to like fight these guys off too at some point, which I don't necessarily love the idea of that. I'm just saying like I could see that happening. But another reason I bring that up is because like what group of guys are you going to get that's better than what we're seeing right now to defend AEW? You know what I mean? It almost feels like this is kind of the dream team of like the top stars that they have that would have a reason to have a problem with the Death Riders. Outside of maybe the Elite later on.
Swerve is an easy one.
Yeah.
Darby, Darby's there clearly, but he's also doing Continental Classic stuff. This is what I talk about. There is a disconnect between the two. So, yeah, Swerve and Darby are kind of two big names you could really add to this mix. And again, I know Darby is part of it, but like I mentioned last week, he was more focused on Continental Classic. This week, he was not part of things at all. So, he could definitely be part of it. Hangman is very easy to kind of remain here with things. And Jay White is obviously one of their top guys, and back-to-back wins over Hangman Page is a big deal. Even beating Pac last night was a big deal. We're very far from Blood and Guts, Henry. That's usually in like July, maybe June. So yeah, we're half a year from Blood and Guts. Theoretically, you can do it anytime you want. It doesn't have to be a set thing, but it's been a set thing. So I don't think we're gonna get Blood and Guts out of this anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that would be really, really interesting to have Swerve join up, because then you'd have to have Swerve and Hangman working together, which I'm all for seeing what that looks like, though, because they're in a fight forever type scenario, right? I mean, like at some point they'll go back to them against each other. I mean, I'm not necessarily, I don't want to see it like right now, but they'll always be linked to one another in some way, shape, or form. So it'd be interesting to see them having a team with one another to try to take down the Death Riders together. I like the idea of that.
I want it to be to take down the Death Riders, by the way. I don't want we're going to stand up for AEW stuff. Like, stand up to the Death Riders instead of stand up for AEW. Now, how, again, you make sense out of that is like, yeah, we went to war. You can always do a mutual respect type of thing. Like we left it all out there. We tried to kill each other, but we tried to kill each other the right way. Basically, Jon Moxley is doing it the wrong way. He's going after people who are, good people like Bryan Danielson. There's a way to explain it. I don't know if it would feel how people would feel about it, especially so soon, if you're going to do it within the next month or two, which I don't think they are, by the way. I don't think we're going to get a union of Hangman and Swerve fighting on the same side anytime soon. A healthy Kenny Omega is a huge one. We talked about that weeks ago, that Kenny Omega coming in and being the guy who is all for AEW, it makes all the sense in the world. Again, I don't want it to be so much, and this is what it feels like right now, which is good. I don't want it to be we're standing up for AEW. We want to fight for AEW. It needs to be we are standing up to the Death Riders and going after them and what they want and what they are trying to represent, because that's not what we represent. Too much is made, especially recently in AEW. Too much is built around just the company and the feeling and the place sucks now. Oh, well, without AEW, I wouldn't have this type of thing. Don't make the letters so much of the focal point here. Make the wrestlers the focal point and what they're doing and their actions. Make that the focal point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's those are all very good points. You brought up Bryan Danielson. Is he? I know he needs like surgery and stuff. Like, is he like completely out of the picture for like the foreseeable future? Because like I feel like he'll be a part of this story at some point if he can be, because he was like the catalyst for all this, starting with them turning on Danielson. So like, if he's, you know what I mean, I could see if and when he's ready to come back and have another match, like I could see him being on like the team that's trying to take out the Death Riders. You know what I mean? But I don't know like what his timeline looks like, if that's even a possibility.
Yeah, I have no idea. He's kind of said he still needs surgery. They're kind of just seeing where things are at right now. So I do not know. I'm sure he's not factored into any plans, but I'm sure if he says, hey, I want to return, they're not going to be like, I don't know, we're going to do this. Like, no, they're going to welcome back Bryan Danielson. Yeah. Henry asking, do Death Riders get new members like a Jack Perry? I don't know. Jack Perry has not been seen since losing the title. People made a lot out of Jon Moxley saying, you're a good kid. I don't care what anybody says. It would make sense for a guy like Jack Perry to join the group, but the fact that he has not been seen, maybe it is kind of an out of sight, out of mind, always going to return and help the Death Riders type of thing. Maybe that's a possibility. I think there's also some of like, well, Jack Perry just kind of did what he needed to do as the TNT champion. The Elite are off television. But what do we need Jack Perry for right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a lot of questions when it comes to Jack, as far as like what his future's going to look like. I mean, I think he'd be a good fit for the Death Riders. It would make sense to join the group. It depends on how many people they want in the group. I could also see, I've been saying this since the beginning of Moxley taking this whole thing over. Like, I still feel like Yuta is a pawn in this whole thing. Like, he's obviously a part of the group and he's been helping the group, but I could totally see a scenario where they totally screw over Yuta at some point, like, and boot him out. Maybe they decide to bring in Jack and boot Yuta or something. Like, I don't know. But Jack Perry's, that's an interesting one to consider.
Yeah. And we shall see if that happens. All right, let's get into our other topics.
Our product is what it is. We're going straight up the middle.
The Hardy Boys have re-signed with TNA. They are the reigning TNA Tag Team Champions. They've re-signed a 1-year deal, I believe, and I'm sure they can still do kind of outside appearances. I know they're wrestling for House of Glory coming up here in the next month or so. But what'd you make of the Hardys re-signing with TNA?
Yeah, there's actually not a whole lot to really deep dive on this. I just kind of wanted to bring it up on the show because I felt like it was worth at least mentioning that the Hardys have signed with TNA. They're going to be staying there longer. And I think that's good for them, right? I mean, like that's a pretty damn good fit. They can work indie shows like you just mentioned. They're still getting big reactions at TNA. Like the Hardy Boys are always going to be not even, I mean, in a way they're a nostalgia act because they've been around for so long, but like they're still very capable in the ring for like the stuff they need to do, the high spots they need to hit, the poses, the whole kind of vibe of the Hardy Boys. Like, I think they can be very valuable to TNA because it's different than like AEW, because AEW's got such a inflated roster that like, you know, the Hardys are just kind of like another team on this humongous roster of talent. In WWE, it'd be kind of like that too. But if they were to go back to the WWE, I feel like they'd be way more presented as like more like a nostalgia act, where like they wouldn't wrestle as often, and they'd maybe do like some big dream matches, like some big, you know, ladder matches on big shows or stuff like that. But in TNA, it's like I could totally see people buying tickets to TNA specifically to see the Hardys live. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're a different type of draw in a company like TNA, where they're bigger fishes in a much smaller pond. And you know, their match that they had at I always get the pay-per-view just screwed up. I can't remember if it was Slammiversary or Bound for Glory. The one that the multi-person tag match that they had this like a month ago. I reviewed it on Fightful. I just can't remember what. I always screw the names of the pay-per-views up. But they had that match with like Ace Austin and Chris Bay in the System. That basically a TLC match. That was
Bound
for Glory. That was really, really, really good. You know, so like, yeah, and also I won't be there next week. So this Saturday I'm planning, things can always change. I'm planning to go to GCW this Saturday at Center Stage. But like next week, I have a trip already planned to go back to the casino, so I won't be going, but I believe it's happening at Center Stage next. They're doing something where like next Thursday in Atlanta, they're having like this wrestling show. I can't remember the name of the company.
I think Turning Point. Oh.
Well, no, so they're having Turning Point at Center Stage Friday night, but the night before, they're doing like a local show. I always forget the name of the company. They've run a few events, but I want to say it's like a hip hop wrestling type crossover show, kind of like what Battle Slam was doing. But they're doing a triple threat ladder match at that show. And two of the teams that I can't remember the third, but two of the teams in the ladder match are the Hardy Boys and VIF, which I was like, what? Like they're doing this randomly in Atlanta on like a Thursday night.
Oh, that's Heels Have, Fourth Rope, Heels Have Eyes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I forgot the company, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that's in Atlanta, and I think it's at Center Stage. I could be wrong about the venue, but I think it's at Center Stage on next Thursday. But anyway, that's just kind of to our point of like TNA opens it up to where like the Hardys could be a humongous act on TNA as the tag champs and everything right now, and then simultaneously go out there and have matches against teams like VIF on the indies and stuff. Like that's awesome. That's a win-win for the Hardys. I feel like this is the best position the Hardy Boys could possibly be in, outside of if they do want to return to the WWE in like a full-time or part-time capacity. Like if that's what they want to do, that's their prerogative. Obviously that's the place to be, but like you're in a damn good spot right now with TNA. So I'm happy. I think it's smart for TNA, and I think it's smart for the Hardys. I think it's mutually beneficial for everybody for them to be in business with one another right now.
Yeah, I think it's a good deal. They still get good reactions. They were just in North Carolina for tapings and for WrestleCade. They are very over, certainly in North Carolina. And they still bring some eyes. And TNA is running some big shows next year. They're running UBS Arena in New York for a show, and then they're running a pretty big venue in California for Slammiversary as well. So they're running some pretty big venues next year, and you need guys like the Hardys who are still bringing audience, still have a nostalgia factor. Like it is nostalgia. Like they've been around for 3 decades now. It's nostalgia. But they still, draw an audience. So you need guys like that because they don't have that kind of elsewhere on the card. They haven't built up a whole lot of guys over the years. That's why they're going with your Nick Nimitz and your Hardys as your champions, as your top champions in the company. The other spotlight, Eric Bischoff returns. MLW One Shot. He was also on NXT TV this past Tuesday. But Eric Bischoff is back for at least this week in wrestling.
Oh, I thought you were totally gonna. You were like, he's back and better than ever. Yeah, I mean, it's right there, softball. Had to say it. Yeah, it's interesting the involvement of Eric Bischoff in wrestling right now. I know, obviously, he does his podcasts and stuff, and he has his opinions on a lot of stuff. But it's Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting seeing him as a part of NXT at all. And then for him to be popping up with this MLW show, I mean, I'm interested to see what his involvement looks like. The actual show itself looks pretty solid. There's some good matches on the card. And some good stuff for the TV tapings as well. I don't know what I don't see Cruel on the show, which is a little concerning. I don't know why he isn't on there. I know the Contra Unit has a tag team match, but yeah, do you have any thought? I mean, like, I have no idea what Bischoff's involvement is outside of like him being announced for the show, and he'll probably go into the ring and, you know, say something to the crowd. But I don't know. I don't know if it goes any farther than that.
They just announced, this is so dumb, don't miss the debut of the 83 Weeks Ring Girls on Eric Bischoff's One Shot.
So it's like the Nitro Girls.
The Nitro Girls. The 83 Weeks Girls.
You need Conrad out there too.
That's so stupid. But sure.
But as far as like the actual show, just real quick, you know, Matt Riddle and Dijak, I think, will be solid. They've been. I know Riddle just debuted on TNA technically also during WrestleCade weekend, but they've been building Riddle. Whether you like him or you don't, I understand Riddle's polarizing, but like MLW has been building him as the next world champion for a while now. So I wouldn't be surprised if he beat Dijak, unless Riddle isn't going to be there long term and like they're going to go with Dijak, who's also been getting heavily pushed. It'd be interesting to see where they go with that one, but I do expect Riddle to win because outside of Cruel, who I think already should have won the MLW championship, but now especially that we know he's signed to them, I totally expect them to put the title on him. The route that I think they're going to go is I think Riddle will beat Kojima sometime soon, and then Cruel will beat Riddle. Like, I don't think Riddle will have like a long MLW title reign. I think Cruel will beat Riddle for it at some time in the near future. So just kind of throwing that out there as far as a match to kind of keep your eyes on during this show. But there's a lot of good stuff, like Mystico versus Trevor Lee is going to be a banger of an in-ring match for the middleweight title. And, you know, Alice Kane and Bobby Fish, they're doing a fan vote for like a Taboo Tuesday style vote for either UWF rules, kickboxing, or tape fist, which are all fairly similar. I mean, at the end of the day, but I'm interested to see those guys in that style. Bobby Fish definitely has like that quote unquote MMA background, and he's definitely talked about that in his opinions of other people who also may or may not have MMA backgrounds. And Alice Kane is, you know, a really good grappler, throws great suplexes and stuff like that. So, you know, there's good stuff. And on the TV tapings, we're going to get Ultimo Guerrero versus Kojima for the MLW Heavyweight Championship. I fully expect Kojima to retain there. Akira and Suzuki should be a banger. Tom Lawler and Timothy Thatcher. You know, I mean, so they got a lot of good stuff coming up on this MLW show. But I feel like Eric Bischoff is just going to be kind of like a I don't know if you call it a cherry on top, or what you'd call it, but there are going to be fans that don't normally tune into MLW. They're going to be like, oh yeah, I want to see what Eric Bischoff does, and like maybe they get a few extra eyes on it or something. I don't know.
It's going to be free on YouTube. It's one of their Thursday night shows, which
it's tonight.
Yes, it is tonight. Sometimes I like the Thursday shows. Sometimes I like the Friday or the Saturday shows, as long as it's not airing at 10 o'clock, which is absurd. But
I like when they are on time, you know, like the day that they're advertised. That's good too.
That's always good.
So hopefully we do see this tonight and not tomorrow night or over the weekend. It's supposed to be tonight, so I expect to be able to watch it tonight. But
yeah,
I know things happen.
Yeah. All right. Where's the final bumper here?
I want to give a big motherfucking shout out.
Effy is set to face Allie Katch, and he's set to face Matt Cardona, replacing Ricky Starks at GCW. And then there's some GCW ROH tie-ins going on as well. But Effy's going to face Allie Katch, and then the winner faces Mance Warner for the GCW World Title at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Anyone talk about this, Jensen?
Yes. So, yeah, basically, as you said, it was announced over the weekend. To make kind of a long story short, I can't go into the whole storyline between Bussy and the second gear crew and Mance and all that stuff. It's been going on for a long time now, and GCW, but it's all culminating now. Basically, Effy got on the microphone over the weekend and said, "Hey, Mance, I know that last week was supposed to be my last shot at the title. I was screwed out of that because of Allie Katch. Basically saying like, be a man and fight me at Hammerstein. I want to leave Hammerstein as the GCW champion." After the next match, which Mance was in, Mance grabbed the microphone and he explained how everything's going to go down for Hammerstein. Allie Katch also has cut promos and stuff too. They've been building this between the three. I said last week that I thought that it was going to be a triple threat, that they were just going to do Mance versus Effy versus Allie Katch as the main event of Hammerstein. But I liked this option better, which is what they're going to do, is going to be Effy versus Allie Katch. Then the winner on that same night is going to go to the main event and wrestle Mance Warner for the GCW title. I expect Effy to beat Allie Katch, and then I also expect Effy to beat Mance Warner. I do think he's going to win the GCW championship at Hammerstein. And I think that accomplishes a lot of things all at one time. You get a big match between Bussy, Allie Katch, and Effy at Hammerstein. So it's a big match on their biggest show. And the two of them deserve to have that for their own story that's been ongoing for years and years at this point as well. And then you have Effy, quote unquote, finishing his story and finally beating Mance and finally winning the GCW championship that he's had his eyes on for so long as well. And then you can also leave some meat on the bone where later down the line, if Effy holds the title for a little bit, Allie Katch could be a title feud for Effy also. They can run that back at some point and it would make sense. The big wild card here is Cole Radrick, because Cole and Alec Price are going to be wrestling VIF for the tag team titles at Hammerstein. But Cole did not have to cash in his brass ring for this title shot, at least not as of now. Like, they have not implemented that. They've kind of alluded to it, but they've never outright said like that Cole had to use, because basically what they're doing is the Garbage Daddies had VIF dead to rights a few weeks ago. They got the visual pin on them, but the referee was down. So like they've proven like they can beat VIF. And for what it's worth, VIF is my favorite tag team in the world. I love those guys. Ku and Greeny, those are my guys. I think they're legitimately the best tag team on earth. But like eventually someone's got to beat them for these titles. And the Garbage Daddies, in my opinion, are by far the best option to do that. So I do expect the Garbage Daddies to beat VIF at Hammerstein for the tag team titles. But that doesn't rule out Cole being a champ either at Hammerstein or down the line. But I don't see, he's not going to cash in on Effy, I don't think, unless they want to turn Cole heel all of a sudden, which I don't think would be a good idea. So there's a lot of things to consider with this. I would say if Mance Warner somehow retains over Effy at the end of the night, then Cole cashes in on Mance to leave the show on a high note as the GCW champion, as a good guy. But there's just some things to consider. But as far as like Effy, I do fully expect one way or another, Effy is going to be the GCW champion at Hammerstein. I think he will beat Mance Warner for that belt.
I think you're probably right. Unless Chris Jericho comes out and wins the title.
I do want to see Jericho in GCW. I think that would be fascinating. I haven't seen that for a while, though.
The other indie spotlights, Stephen Wolf retains the new Texas World title against Calvin Tankman. I know you want to talk about this match.
Yeah, this was a really solid match. I more so wanted to talk about Stephen Wolf just briefly because he's a guy he's been doing a really good job with this new Texas championship. He's been around for a while. And he's the guy I just wanted to be able to mention on the show today because we don't really talk about him much. Talk about him on the Weekender pretty often. But got the win with like a low blow, some outside interference, and a really nice shooting star press over Calvin Tankman in the main event of the New South 6th anniversary show. Shout out to New South for the 6 years. They've been a really great company. Especially like during the pandemic, I thought that they really stepped their game up. Them and Loco Wrestling, which I think Loco doesn't run shows anymore, but there were some really great these like Houston / like Texas based companies, and New Texas is like
is like top tier in my opinion as far as like that region. And they have a lot of really great talent. Like after the match, Mysterious Q came out for the save, helping like save Calvin Tankman from a beatdown by the Wolf Pack, Stephen Wolf's group, the Pack. And Mysterious Q is somebody else who, like, Mysterious Q is trained by Booker T, has great size, really, really talented, and somebody that, like, I could totally see being ID'd potentially. Like, I know there has to be eyes on him. And Stephen Wolf, if I remember correctly, I could be wrong. I don't want to, you know, if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I'm almost positive Stephen Wolf was either signed or about to be signed by the WWE during the pandemic. Like, he was like right there on the cusp of going. And then the pandemic happened and a lot of things changed for a lot of people. There was like multiple people that were apparently going to be heading to the WWE, or even people that were in the WWE, like Alex Zane or Anthony Henry and some of these guys who were in the system and were cut during the pandemic that were basically only used on like 205 Live or whatever. So like Stephen Wolf is a guy that I feel like has had the talent to be on that next level for a long time now. I remember seeing him live at like Glory Pro shows when I would drive from Nashville to St. Louis like 6-7 years ago, whatever it was already at this point. But yeah, I just wanted to give Stephen Wolf kind of his flowers today. He's done a great job as the new Texas champion. He still is the champion. He's got a ton of talent, and I think he's somebody people should have their eyes on. So
there you go. Where can people watch this match, Jensen?
This is IWTV.
Okay.
New Texas. Yeah. Use code Fight Talk.
There you go. All right, folks. Let's get into.
Oh, sorry. Did we have another? Oh, yeah, the interview. I was about to say, did we have another topic? I got to go clock in for the shoot job.
Yeah. You set up this interview because I, as people see, was only there for about 30 seconds.
Yes. So this is an interview with Tim Bosby, who is the Action Wrestling World Champion. He won the title recently over Warhorse, who had just beaten Bobby Flacco the night before for the title. So we talk about that. We talk about, him being the Action Champion. He's only been wrestling for like 2 years. We talk about his amateur wrestling background. Talk about his theme music. Talk about a little bit of everything. So yeah, enjoy this interview with Tim Bosby. I really enjoyed it. As Jeremy mentioned, he was only there for a few seconds, but after Jeremy drops off, we kept it going for like 45 minutes. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the interview. Tim is a cool guy. Super, super, super talented, and somebody that I think is going to have a fast track to big things in wrestling, just based off of his size, his ability, and you'll understand when you see this interview. I'm very high on this guy, and I think for good reason. And a lot of people that I really respect are very high on him as well. So yeah, enjoy this interview with myself and Tim Bosby. I'm going to go clock in for the shoot job. Follow me on X at FightTalk _ Use code FightTalk and IndependentWrestling.tv. Listen to The Weekender, usually on Sundays, sometimes on Mondays. FightfulSelect.com. See y'all.
There you go. Thank you as always, Jensen. All right, guys, let's get into it. In the Creator Spotlight, it is the Action World Champion, Tim Bosby.
Welcome to the Creator Spotlight here on the Spotlight on Fightful. I am Stephen Jensen, joined as always by Jeremy Lambert, and our guest today is the former 3-time CWFM Internet Champion and the current reigning Action World Champion. Tim Bosby is in the house, and he's got that Action Wrestling World Championship belt in hand. Tim, thank you for joining us, and how you been doing, man?
I have been doing good. How are you guys?
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. We know that you are currently at work at your shoot job, and we're getting an interview with you. So I was saying before we started recording this, I very much respect the grind out there doing what you got to do in the professional world and in the world of professional wrestling. And we appreciate your time, man. So we're good. And I'm glad to hear you're good. How's work going today?
It is going good so far today. I came in about 2 hours ago. This is one of my many jobs. So left the first job this morning, got a workout in, showered, came here, and it's going good so far, and hopefully remains good while this happens. And then get right back onto it. And then on the weekends, I'm a wrestler. The Action World Champion, the 10th. And I just want to say at the very top of this is very unprecedented because I have never wrestled for Action, yet I am the champion. Just think about that for a second. How many times has that happened? Someone has never worked for a place before, but is somehow the company's champ. Just want to say that one of the many reasons why I am second to none.
Yes, second to none, Tim Bosby. I'm glad you brought that up. We can just jump right into it. So, what you're referencing essentially is you are the Action Wrestling World Champion. You defeated Warhorse for that title belt. Warhorse. So it's a little confusing for those who follow along with Action Wrestling. Bobby Flacco, who we've had on the show recently, actually right after he defeated Manders for the Action Championship, we interviewed Bobby. And then Bobby actually wound up losing the championship at a action show I believe it was in Fayetteville, Georgia, which to my knowledge, I don't think has even aired. So it was, I saw on social media that the title change had happened. And then the next night at TWE, you defeated Warhorse to become the Action Champion. So a lot happened in that couple span of days, and you have been getting a lot of reps in with TWE, which is like a sister promotion to Action Wrestling, of course. So so you were familiar to that fan base. Obviously, of course, competed at the Action Future Showcase tournament that's intertwined with the SCI Action, part of that as well. So you're part of that world, but have never actually wrestled in an Action show, which I think is very interesting. What has been the feedback so far since winning the championship? You are only like 2 or so years into your career, very young, very talented, already the champion of a major promotion in Action Wrestling.
Yeah, so far, I mean, feedback to me from what I've heard has been positive. Everyone involved was like, hey, this is an opportunity to do something that is very unique. Like I said, I don't think it can be said enough. I've never wrestled for Action, yet I am the world champion. And if you look at their list of champions, it's a very, very nice list of Kevin Koo, Adam Priest, Manders, Bobby, AC Mack. And now here I am, the youngest on that list at 20 years old. I just hit 2 years in the game back in October. And like I said, if I haven't said before, I've never wrestled for Action before, and yet I'm the champ. So, no one has said nothing to me on a negative side of it. I feel like December 13th is going to be a very unique show because I don't know how the people are going to take to someone that they've never seen before is their world champion. So it should be very interesting.
It should be. And by the way, Jeremy had to step away. Hopefully we get him back during this interview. But so after beating Warhorse, and I'll probably jump around a little bit, but after beating Warhorse for the championship at TWE, Dylan Hales handed you the title belt. And Dylan, of course, very instrumental in not just the Southeast wrestling scene, really very heavily in that scene, but, all across IWTV and so many things that he's involved with. And him handing you that belt, he shook your hand. I saw he said good job to you, but he also whispered something in your ear and he followed you to the back. Did you get any immediate feedback, and kind of what was the message from Dylan in that moment?
So I did get some feedback after the match. Once we got, situated, he gave me some really good feedback. But as far as what was said in the ring, I would like to keep that private for now. Sure. Because Dylan has played such a pivotal role in my growth and success. Oh my gosh, Dylan Hales, he has been such a mentor for me over this last year and a half, giving me an opportunity to come into TWE. He was the one, he saw me at a show and was like, hey, we're doing something called Crash Course. Could you make the drive? And I made the drive in April of last year. And after my match, he said, I really like you. Can you come to our main show on Saturdays? And I said, sure. And ever since then, once, sometimes twice a month, just coming to Chattanooga. And I have gotten to wrestle some very great talent and learn a lot from tons of individuals. And it's all thanks to Dylan Hales. And it was a very special moment getting to win the Action World Championship in a TW ring, in the TW arena. And it was very special to have Dylan Hales hand it to me. And we got to have that moment. And like I said, I like to keep what he said to me in the ring private for now. But it was very, very special to have Dylan in the ring for that moment.
Well, I definitely respect that. And I respect Dylan a lot. I've talked about him a lot through the years as somebody who he's been behind the scenes and involved in so many things that are so important to me as a fan, especially of independent wrestling. Years back, Southern Underground Pro out of Nashville. I used to live in Nashville, and that company really reinvigorated my love for wrestling. I was a lifelong wrestling fan, but it was kind of becoming, jaded by kind of the mainstream wrestling scene. And it was like this new promotion popped up and Sup Raps and the Basement East in Nashville. And I just fell so in love with it. And so much of that has kind of become what the scene and Action Wrestling and SCI and kind of these companies we're talking about, TWE, have been. So, that was really cool. It was really cool seeing Dylan be the one to hand you that belt. And I obviously respect both you guys. And if you want to keep that private, absolutely respect that as well. As far as your matches with Warhorse, I thought it was a really well done trilogy between you guys, with like a lot of foreshadowing that may not even been initially planned, but the way that it played out just, I think, worked really well. Like, what I mean by that is in your first match with one another, there's a spot right towards the end of the match where Warhorse is going up top for his elbow drop. You kip up, you go up to the top rope, but he pushes you off the ropes, winds up hitting his elbow drop, pins you for the 1-2-3 and that was at TWE, I believe. That was TWE, I think. I'm trying to remember. All three have been at TWE. So that happens in your first matchup. Your second matchup, you do get the better of Warhorse, and it was like a humongous win at the time, seen as like a big upset. Warhorse, probably the longest reigning IWTV Independent Wrestling World Champion ever, and a guy who obviously getting a win over him is a very big deal, especially being so early on in your career. So getting that win put you on a lot of people's radars, and then you beating him for the title recently. I saw there was like that moment towards the end of the match where it was the same setup where Warhorse is up on the top rope. He's going to go for the elbow. You kip up, but this time you hit the suplex off the top. You follow up with the ankle lock, and you get him to tap out. Can you just speak, I guess, to the importance of these matches you've had specifically with Warhorse?
Yeah, so Warhorse, I was very thankful for these series of matches. Especially that first one, because I think, funny enough, all three matches are in my top 3 of longest singles matches I've had. Like, I know the first one, I think bell time was around 14 minutes, bell to bell, which is the longest at that time I had ever wrestled in a singles match. And in the second one, I think that one's like 14 minutes, maybe 15. And that one became the longest I've ever wrestled in a singles match. And now this last one we just had, I think the final bell time was like 18 minutes. And now that's the longest singles match I've ever had. So every match, it just kind of kept evolving. And I felt like I really grew a lot in these 3 matches and learned so much from Warhorse with these 3 matches. And, you brought up that one moment of the nip up not working and then it working. I just learned you just got to grab them and throw them immediately. Don't go
Right.
up there and try and hug them and try and, let me figure out what I need to do. Nope, I learned to just go up there and just throw them right off. And that's what I did. And, I was just very thankful very thankful for TWE, and obviously back to Dylan. He plays a major part in this. Warhorse came to TWE 3 times this year. All 3 times were to go against me. And I think that is something that I will heavily cherish, and I will thank the TWE staff and whoever's in charge of making those decisions to entrust me 3 times over with a big name like that, because he could have wrestled anybody, but he wrestled me 3 times. So I'm just very thankful, and those matches played a very big part of my learning.
Well, you've been in there like right away. Obviously, all the stuff you've done with like CWFM as well, of course. I don't want to just gloss over that because I know you got a lot of your reps in, especially right off the bat with that company, and you really grew there really quickly. But like kind of in this kind of action wrestling scene in the Southeast, you've gotten to wrestle, guys like Jaden Newman, who have been around, a young veteran in Jaden. I remember Jaden when he was a teenager, and now he's like a veteran in the scene, which is just so wild, but also like training his own kids, and the TW Arena, obviously that's him. And so it's like cool seeing you in there with guys like Derek Neal. What's it like, I guess, kind of being put in these spots, even like the Action Wrestling, the Future Showcase, where like you advanced in the tournament over some big hitters. And it was like, man, you've been put in like these big spots, obviously already the Action World Champion, like really quickly. What's it been like getting in the ring with guys like Jaden and guys like Derek, guys who have been around for quite a while now and have like built up their own reputations over these years, and being entrusted to be in those spots with those guys so early on?
Gosh, that I wouldn't say that philosophy. That didn't really kick in until a few months of me going into WWE last year, because obviously I can easily admit it. I was a WWE kid. I did not watch independence. I didn't know nothing about the outside world until here these last few years. But even then, it was like I really only knew about New Japan and like Ring of Honor. So when I started wrestling, I didn't really know nobody on the independence. And then when I started to wrestle at TWE, I started to realize, oh my gosh, some very talented individuals that roll up through TWE. And, you know, some of the names, like I said, I've gotten to wrestle Jaden Newman, Derek Neal, Darian Bankston.
Yep.
Someone who I think is very underrated is Casey Owens.
He's really on the come up right now. Absolutely. Good hand.
You know, speaking of SCI, I mean, I got to be in the ring with Cody Fluffman and The Wall. I got to be in the ring with Anakin Murphy and Jameson Shook. So, like, you know, being in the ring with these people that come from, like, all walks of life, that have many different styles. Because in Memphis, for the most part, you're kind of wrestling the same person. Everyone does, like, the punch and kick style. Like, oh, Memphis, brother, you know. But coming over here, oh, my gosh, the difference between like a Derek Neal and a Darian Bankston, and like trying to keep up with Darian Bankston's whatever he be doing, man. He'll like grab a wrist lock and he can spin 5 times. Now he's got you by your knee. And like that, you know, that's a match I go back and watch from time to time. And I'm like, man, I want to do that one again. Because that happened in August of last year. And I wasn't even a year in yet. Like, I want that match to happen now. I feel like I've grown so much, and obviously he continues to grow and continues to improve. That's a match I want to do again. But yeah, like I said, I can't praise TWE enough, because, you know, Memphis gave me my foundation and I'm still there, and I get to wrestle against those guys and do all that. But like TWE, and it puts me in the ring with so many different styles that it becomes sink or swim moments. You know, you're talking about, how does it feel to be in all these? It's sink or swim. You know, they're going to give you opportunity. Let's see how Tim does against Casey. Let's see how Tim does against Derek. Let's see what happens. And, you know, and you get some pretty good hefty times. You know, Memphis, it's curtain to curtain TV. So if you got 5 minutes, that's entrances, introductions, the match, the afterbirth, the little 30 seconds where they raise your hand. That's 5 or 6 minutes. But you come to TWE and it's bell to bell. And, you know, like I said, you got 14 minutes. That's all in the ring. It's a whole new ball game, and it has just helped me. TWE as a whole, with the wrestlers and just the background people and everything that happens behind the scenes, it just has really helped me grow. And the best way I can answer that is just, it's sink or swim, man.
Yeah, and yeah, you mentioned Darren Benson, of course, the reigning TWE champion. So, just going to plant those seeds out there. Yeah. I'd love to see a champion versus champion matchup between y'all. So,
you know, he beat me by roll up. It wasn't, you know, a decisive. He hit a move and beat me. I just have to clarify. He beat me by roll up. So there may be something to that.
He does come from that Daniel Makabe learning tree. So it's like, you never know what pinning predicament or submission hold there or chain that, you know, he's going to put you through during those matchups. Great stylistic match. I mean, you're a great stylistic match, in my opinion, with everybody, because of your athleticism. You obviously have a very strong amateur wrestling base. You know, I'm familiar with amateur wrestling myself. It was not nearly as good as you, but and I'm also much older than you, but I wrestled in high school, and I know people who watch the show knows, because I've talked about it ad nauseum over the years, but I happen to be on the same high school wrestling team as Cody Rhodes back in the day.
Really?
So I was able to see what it looked like for somebody to be a 2-time state champion, and like what it took for, in the sacrifices and the training and the dedication it took for somebody to win state championships in wrestling. And I know, you know, to make those tournaments, to get on those podiums, it's like having a whole separate job while you're also in school, trying to be like a kid at school and like having fun at school, but you got to watch your weight. I don't know about you being at like 220. I have no idea how much you had to cut down or if you did at all, but what was the experience like? I guess, you know, I know you've been wrestling your whole life, but I guess, can you speak to just kind of the dedication and kind of the, how amateur wrestling prepared you for professional wrestling?
Yeah, so that may not be something a lot of people know. You know, I don't know how to explain the feeling. A lot of people just kind of like assume I just did amateur wrestling and I just walked into pro wrestling. It was kind of the opposite. I've loved professional wrestling since day one. And my freshman year of high school at Cordova, I said, I need to join the wrestling team. And that's going to prepare me because I had been listening to podcasts about wrestling school and how they broke Hogan's leg and how guys got stretched. And I was like, okay, I don't think nobody was stretching Brock and Kurt. So I joined the wrestling team in high school just to prepare myself for pro wrestling. I didn't intend to be good at it or anything. I just wanted to learn a few holds, get in a little bit, good shape. And, you want to talk about cutting weight. That was a brutal process because I started super fat, like 245, 250, and had to cut down to 220. So that was something that was insane. And I held that weight down from freshman year to senior year. And
wow, 4 years straight of doing that.
Yeah.
Well, is there a heavyweight division above that you could have competed in?
Yes. Yeah. So my tournament weight was 220. Now, if they needed to do something for a duel per se, I would bump up to heavyweight. Here where I am at in Tennessee, heavyweight goes from they just changed it now that I've graduated. But when I was wrestling, it was 221 to 284. And
oh wow.
And then 220 was 196 to like 219 or something like that. So and I only had 3 seasons. My junior year was cut off due to COVID. So I only got 3 seasons to wrestle. And I only joined just to prepare myself for pro wrestling. And I ended up being somewhat decent at it, just due to my stamina and being able to outlast guys. And I have a size 15 foot. So when a guy tries to take me down, I have a pretty good base to base off of.
It's very important in amateur wrestling. The base is like everything. Man, it's funny you mentioned that. I know there's a lot of people that get into amateur wrestling for the purposes of, wanting to become pro wrestlers or like found out about amateur wrestling because of pro wrestling. Like there was a kid on my team. I'll never forget it. It was like the strangest thing. It always stuck with me. But this kid, he was a juggalo. He was very big into the ICP in my high school. And he, I believe, got into the ICP because of like wrestling. Like that was like his introduction to wrestling, was being an ICP fan. But then because of watching wrestling, he was like, well, I don't know how I'm supposed to like make it in, but I know Kurt Angle was a wrestler. So like, I got to join the wrestling team if I want to learn how to wrestle and then be like the ICP. And I was like, that's the strangest like reasoning to get into wrestling. But I get it. Even Xavier Woods has talked about it. I got to witness Xavier Woods versus Cody Rhodes in high school wrestling back in the day. And Xavier has talked about it in interviews. Woods has said that his thing was he would wrestle up in weight to try to wrestle Cody specifically at our tournaments, because Dusty would go to all of our matches, and his mindset was, if I can beat Dusty's kid in front of Dusty, then Dusty's going to tell Vince McMahon about me, and then I'm going to get into the WWE. Like that was his like big end game. So you're not alone in that. There's like a whole generation of people, even to this day. You're much younger than I am. I graduated high school in 2006. So like, even back then, that was like a strategy of like, I love pro wrestling. I don't know how to get into pro wrestling. I'm going to try amateur wrestling, and then I'm going to get into pro wrestling. Just so funny how that works out. Yeah, not so much of a question. It's just kind of like being relatable about that, I guess. But yeah, man, I do you have any stories or any like takeaways from, I guess, kind of the process of like you end your high school wrestling career and then you want to go into pro wrestling? Like, what steps did you take? Did you basically like seek out the school and like go to the Memphis school? Like, how did that all happen?
Oh, yeah. So, oh, gosh, if it was up to me in hindsight, I'm so glad my parents laid the law down. But if it was up to me, I wouldn't even wrestled my senior year. I wanted to go straight to the training school. Memphis Wrestling, I don't know when they started. It would have had to have been around maybe summer of 2021. And when I saw that, me and my dad went to a show in the summer, and Dustin Starr, the promoter and owner of the school. He was like, yeah, we have there's a kid there named Dalton. He's like, he's 15 and he's training. You can come on in, Tim. And I was like, what? I want to come in right now. My dad and mom like, nope, you got to finish. So I went my whole senior year hating. I hated going to practice. I hated everything because I'm such big fans of, and I would see Nick Wayne and Billy Starks getting to wrestle, and they're younger than me. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm showing my dad like Nick Wayne matches. I'm like, that could be me. Like, I could be wrestling right now, training for this. And he's like, you got to finish school, got to finish. So, it was set in stone. Like, as soon as I graduated high school, I was going to go to the training school. The only thing was my parents, they were like, you don't have to go to, regular college. We understand this is what you want to do, but at least go to a community college here in the area. So I did that. That was our agreement. Completely flunked out, college dropout. Did not go well at all. I tried to tell them what was going to happen, but no, I just went straight to Memphis Wrestling School. My first day of training was June 1st, 2022. And, they don't do like a 3 or 4 month, 5 month program. Once you sign up, you're just in. And yeah, my first day was June 1st. And then my first match was October 8th. So yeah, it was a heck of a time.
Like 3 or 4 months?
Pretty much. Yeah. Should be around there, 3 or 4 months. And
wow.
Yeah, that was, I was so excited, man. And, they only do 2 days a week, Mondays and Wednesdays. So, like, man, Monday, all right, I'm great. Tuesday, I can't wait for tomorrow. Do Wednesday, and I'm like, oh, my God, I got to wait, like, all these days till Monday again. And, like, I would be the first one there. I would ask all these questions. And, it sucked, like, my first 2 weeks because they have a rule. You can't get in the ring. You have to do chain wrestling first. And I was like, no, like, me and my Shrek doll have been wrestling for 15 years as a kid. Like, I know the moves. I know how to do things. Like, I watched how to wrestle on YouTube, these guys in the backyard. I know how to take a bump already. I know how to do all this. Just let me in the ring. So that part was frustrating, like, the first 2 weeks. And it wasn't until, like, I just got in the ring. And I was not supposed to. I just told a guy, hey, let's do this quick spot. So I did a spot, and they're like, oh, huh, okay. Well, maybe you can start being in the ring. And then I was able to fast forward all the chain wrestling and all that boring stuff to get into the ring and, hip toss class. And, those first few months, man, they were very exciting times. I was just so excited to be involved. And, like, it's literally, you ask anybody in my family, and I can admit it, I'm too addicted to wrestling. It's too bad. It's way too much, but it's all I've ever wanted to do. So those first few months, man, like, I'd never been in the ring before. I was so excited. So excited.
Dude, that's awesome. And then, like, you're going straight from amateur wrestling into it. So I'd imagine you're already, like, have a massive head start as far as, like, conditioning goes and, like, obviously knowing how to manipulate your body and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's got to be. Can you speak to that at all? Because, like, I can speak for myself. Like, I've never been in better shape than I was back when I was doing high school wrestling. And, like, I look back on those days and I'm like, man, that would have been the time if I was going to make any kind of moves athletically. Like, that would have been the time, because I'm never going to get back to that. But how important was that? Like, just the conditioning and having that mindset before you even started?
It was everything, literally. Like. And like I said, I've been listening to the podcast of, this guy and this guy. They'll come in, they'll stretch or whatever. So I was so psyched out on that first day. Like, I was prepared to put hands on anybody. I was prepared for all the drills. Like, you have to run up the mountains and you got to run around the building and you're dying. And I got there and, like, I think it's changed now. But, like, when I was there, my first day, the warm up was like 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, and like 10 jumping jacks. And, like, I think it was like 4 sets of that. After the second set, people were, like, about to throw up. And I was like, what?
Yeah, like, I can probably do what you just said right now. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm not trying to, like, put anyone on blast, but that doesn't sound that difficult.
I like I said, I don't want to make fun of nobody or nothing, but I was looking around like, okay, this is a little odd. All right. And then when it came to the rolls, I already knew a front roll, back roll, how to do a handspring roll. Had to do a jumping tiger roll. I didn't have to get taught none of that stuff. So, I mean, that part was everything. Like, I already had the cardio. I already knew how to, like you said, how to control your body. That's very important in both sports. So, yeah, I mean, that was literally everything. It gave me everything I needed, which is why I joined freshman year. Like I said, I knew I needed to do it because now, if you took 8th grade me, oh my gosh, I was so fat. I couldn't like lift my leg up off the ground. I was very unathletic. So yes, amateur wrestling helped me out greatly.
What did like, so you said you were cutting from what weight down to 220?
So when I first started my freshman year, in the summer, or really at the beginning of the school year, I was like 245-ish, and they told me we already had a really good heavyweight. And I said, well, you got to cut down to 220. And I looked at them like, no, that's not happening. Like, I don't know much about weight cutting or anything, but I'm not losing 20 pounds in like 2 months. And sure enough, I did. Some of the most grueling, intense workouts ever, just on the track, in the sun, just very, very hard stuff. And from that point on, I was able to keep my weight around to like 225, and I was able to cut just a few pounds, before weigh-in. Now, I had some really bad weight cuts my senior year because obviously, you're high school, your body's growing, it's developing. And here I am, I'm trying to hold it down. Like I am, and I'm talking about some of your typical weight cutting stuff, not eating for 3 days. You got a spit bucket, you're constantly spitting, you're sitting in a sauna, your mom's making dinner and you're like, yeah, I'll eat it. And then you just don't. Some of the worst stuff, like, man, I did something really bad. It was, and I didn't even wrestle for the event, which really made me mad.
Was it like a forfeit? Did the other guy just not show kind of thing? Like, was it even worse?
So my coach, it was like a punishment. I think it was after Thanksgiving or something. And I was like, on Monday or Tuesday, we had a duel on Thursday, but on Monday, I was like 234 or 235. And then by that Thursday, I needed to be under 220. And I told coach, first day of the week, hey, I'm just not going to make it. I ate too bad. He's like, no, you better make it or you're off the team. And I was like, what? I was like, coach, I'm a senior. I'm the captain. You got to lead by example. Why are you overweight as the captain? And I was like, oh my God, he's right. So for like 3 hard days, just cutting. I weighed in at like 218. People had to help me on the scale. Like, it was a very scary, traumatic scene. And the son of a gun didn't wrestle me. And I almost blew a gasket, but I understood it. I'm the team captain. I'm supposed to be the leader. And here I am overweight coming off from break. What am I a great example to the freshmen? So he made an example out of me. But that was probably like my worst weight cut. That was pretty bad.
Man, that sucks that he didn't wrestle you. Like, I don't know the guy. I don't want to put this guy on blast, but like that's messed up, man.
Yeah,
it
taught me a lesson.
Oh, I mean, I got message received. I mean, but it's like, dude, to put yourself through it, because I know exactly what you're talking about with the. I mean, people would take up chewing tobacco and dipping like just to lose weight. You know what I mean? Like just to have something to spit out all day. You switch you're drinking nothing but water and Crystal Lights. You're eating nothing at all. You're putting trash bags on your body, running around in the heat. I mean, like and then to not even that's scary to be like have to be helped off the scale and stuff like that. And then they still don't even wrestle. I mean, maybe it was good that he didn't wrestle considering you were that dehydrated and everything. But like, I hate hearing that. But that's a lesson to all you amateur wrestlers out there. That is the sport. I mean, that's a big part of the sport.
Yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, and then be in the classroom too, like people look at me weird because I'd have this like kind of medium-sized bottle, and then the teacher's teaching or whatever, and all you hear is I'm just spitting in class, and like people are like, what is he doing? And I'm like, hey man, I gotta lose 10 pounds. And then like even I would do this tactic, especially my senior year. I would sometimes skip class and head to the workout room or the wrestling room, and I got full on sweats. I'm missing like 2nd and 3rd period. I show back up for 4th, 5th, skip 6th and 7th, and just to try and cut weight. Oh my gosh, it was very, very, very brutal that senior year. That's another reason too why I hated that whole senior year and just wanted to go straight to pro wrestling. Is like, I don't have to cut weight there.
Yeah, they're gonna want you to get bigger. They're gonna tell you to put on weight.
Oh,
So, I know we don't have too much time left, so I want to get through a couple other things here. I really love talking about the amateur wrestling stuff though, because I don't get to talk about it with too many people. But you mentioned obviously you got into amateur wrestling because you wanted to be a pro wrestler. You were a big WWE fan, as you mentioned. Who were some of your favorite wrestlers? Like, what really drew you into pro wrestling as a fan?
So, oh gosh, where do I even begin? Well, first off, I always say this, like, when I was born watching wrestling, which is a true story. Once I was all cleaned up and my mom had me and stuff, my dad, who's a big wrestling fan, there was like a rerun for some reason of Raw playing. And so I was literally born watching wrestling. As I'm just new into this world, my dad's watching a rerun in the hospital instead of checking on, me. But yeah, so I was watching that. And funny enough, it was like a Triple H promo. So I was born in 2004 watching a 20-minute Raw Triple H promo. But
during the reign of terror, when he's everybody that we wanted to see get pushes. That's so funny.
So growing up though, I mean, my dad was a big fan, so like I just watched. I mean, I don't know, like it has just always drawn me. And I even knew from a very, very, very young age there was something to wrestling. Like I knew this isn't fully what they're trying to put on here, because I also, as a kid, would watch boxing and UFC. So I see a guy get punched one time with a glove, and they got a cut, black eye, they're bleeding. But Shawn Michaels puts Triple H in the corner and does a 10 count, and there's not even a mark. So I knew something was going on, but that has never stopped me or bothered me. It's just been so awesome to me. And my number one guy as a kid growing up, and still one of my two guys, which is very funny, you brought one of them up, was The Miz and Cody Rhodes.
Okay.
I love those two guys. When The Miz turned on John Morrison, I was only like 4 or 5. And for some reason, I said, this guy and this really bad purple haircut, mohawk thing he's got, this is my guy. And I stuck with The Miz and Cody. And like, because as a kid, I couldn't stand John Cena as a kid. I didn't like the good guys. To me, they always came off corny. I liked the cooler heel types. So like Miz and Ziggler and Cody. Like to me, those were my guys. But Miz and Cody, 1A, 1B, those were my two guys growing up as a kid. Loved their stuff.
I love that. I'm going to show you something here. I got to grab it from off camera. You might think this is kind of cool. It's just that you brought up The Miz. I don't have much of my Cody stuff in here. I've actually got like a whole other like wall in another room dedicated to all my Cody memorabilia. I've still got our high school wrestling poster over there. I'll send you a picture of it. You'll probably think that's kind of cool to see. But this is old school Miz. This is when he was on the Real World Road Rules Challenge before he even got into the WWE. I was a fan of his and bought his merch off of Be Good, Be Bad, Be Miz.com back in like the early 2000s. That is what he did. I don't know if you know all of his lore, but you know, it was well known that he was a part of the Real World and he was on MTV and stuff like that. But literally what his goal was get famous on MTV, win a bunch of money in the challenges, and then use that money to enroll in wrestling school. And then he actually executed the plan, actually went to wrestling school, actually wound up in the WWE, and he's been one of their longest running. I mean, I got mad respect for The Miz. People like to roast him and like say he's not that good or whatever. No, The Miz is like the personification of sports entertainment. Like this guy has lasted for decades at this point, always a high performer, multiple time world champion, still entertaining to this day. So I love that you brought up The Miz. Obviously, I love you brought up Cody. He's my favorite wrestler of all time, but I'm incredibly biased when it comes to that. So
those two guys, man, I'm telling you, my very early years, I loved those guys. And what made it even more, you know, the don't meet your heroes line. So I've been very fortunate enough to do a lot of extra work for WWE this last year and a half. And oh my gosh, I've gotten to meet both of them. And both of them as nice as you can imagine. I've had conversations with both of them. And that was something else that was really cool to me and added on to their GOAT factor. because they took time. Hey, how are you? What are you doing here today? How's your family? Like, me and Cody talked for like 15 minutes in Chicago one time, and just about like family stuff. And that left a very long lasting impression. And you know, I'm glad I was there at Philly for him to finish the story, and that was awesome. So those two guys, man, love them.
Man, greatest pro wrestling match of all time, WrestleMania 40 Night 2 main event.
Yeah,
defeating Roman Reigns for that championship. Man, there's so much I could ask you about with all this. Like, you know, when it comes to the WWE, you mentioned you've done some extra work there. What are your thoughts on this WWE ID program? Because they are signing up people. I mean, there's obviously like really well-known people that have been around a while, like, you know, Smiley Kylie Ray, for instance, very well established. But you also have others that have only been around a year, 2 years or so. It seems like, you know, you might even be on their radar potentially. You never know. I mean, if people have eyes on these shows. I mean, people are watching Action Wrestling, and people that perform. I mean, Buff and Fluff Connection. I mean, Legacy is ID'd. I mean, they got eyes. What are your thoughts on this ID program, and is it something you get excited about knowing is out there?
Oh my gosh, excited! Yes, absolutely. They are watching. They watch everything. They watch any and everything. And someone from Memphis Wrestling, Aaron Roberts, he got ID'd. That is the guy. This whole year, we wrestled for the Internet Championship. We wrestled for the Heritage Championship. I probably wrestled him like 15 times on all the shows. Yes, they are watching. It is very exciting. I think it's a very exciting time, you know, for professional wrestling on the major scale and even on the little scale. Like, I think across the board, it's a very good time to be involved. And I think this program, it does nothing but just help talent. I saw a lot of people have negative reactions towards it when it first came out. But at the end of the day, it's just literally, it's something to help independence. And I think that's very, very good. Very good stuff. Like, I know I talked with Aaron. It's a very good program. You know, hey, here's some resources where you can go to this school and train. And you can go do this. And like, we'll review your matches and everything. Like, I think it's a very beneficial program.
Very cool. I agree, just for what it's worth, like kind of from the outside looking in. I know there was like varying degrees of, people being, hesitant maybe, or like not knowing exactly how this is going to work. And like, is this going to hurt the indies and all this stuff? And I'm like, I mean, everyone's got their own prerogative. Like, some people, it's their lifelong goal. No matter what, they want to go to the WWE. If this is a way that they can get the WWE on their radar, like, that's a win. If they can get help monetarily, help with travel, help with this or that, like, what's bad about that? You know, so I'm right there with you. I mean, I bet you, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I bet you could probably ask some people who've been grinding the independent scene for over a decade, hey, did you wish that this possibility was around 10 years ago? They go, hell yeah, I wish we were getting some help 10 years ago. So last question I got for you, because I know you got to run, and I do really appreciate you doing this on your break from work. California Love, I'm curious about that. Oh boy. Because do you have ties to California? I just know you as like Memphis, but like, you use California Love as your entrance music at TWE.
2 words, Jameson Shook.
Okay.
That my first time in the TWE building, I tried to use my Memphis song, but they could not get it to work. And then I was like, well, this is the only song I've ever come out to. So like, I sat and thought for like 30 minutes, and I can't even remember. I think I came up with like a list of 4 or 5 songs, and every song I gave, they were like, no, this person uses that. This person uses that. And Jameson was nearby, and he heard every option get declined. And he was like, well, what if he just comes up to California Love? And the music guy was like, yeah, all right. No one has that. And I was like, I don't really know about this. I was like, okay, whatever, I guess. And then, like, as the shows kept going on, like, as soon as the music plays, people start clapping to it. And I'm like, okay, this works. And I have no connections. I'm from Memphis. I don't have anything to this song. It was all Jameson Shook. He literally just was nearby. He heard that every other option got declined. He's like, yeah, what about that one? And here we are. So,
well, shout out to Jameson Shook. Cool. Well, I appreciate the time a lot, Tim. Normally we ask people what the coolest thing in their room is, but I know you're currently in like a office, but you're holding.
Yeah, I can tell you what the coolest thing is in this room. Now there's a bunch of trophies and corporate stuff, but this right here is the coolest. And like I said, December 13th, Georgia. And here's a little fun fact: the last time I was in Georgia was 2011, WrestleMania 27. I was 7 years old when I watched my boy, the GOAT, The Miz, successfully walk out with the WWE title. And now, how funny enough, if you would have told 7-year-old Tim, yeah, the next time you're in Georgia, you're actually going to be a wrestler, you're going to be a world champion, and you're going to wrestle in Georgia, just like your boy, The Miz. So I'm looking very, very forward to this match on December 13th for a lot of reasons, professional and personal. So I'm very excited for that.
I love that. I was too at WrestleMania 27. As a matter of fact, our boy Cody Rhodes defeated the guy whose hoodie you're currently wearing, Rey Mysterio.
Yeah, I shouldn't be wearing this, really.
No, it's okay. Yeah. Nothing but love for Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio. I'm not no Rey Mysterio slander coming from me. No way. Tim, thanks again, man. Please let everyone know where they can find you. Anything you want to plug.
Yeah, so it should be Tim_Bosby on Twitter, X, and Instagram. You can find me on pretty much TWE shows. You can now find me at Action shows as the world champion. Memphis Wrestling. You can find me also at Hooligan Championship Wrestling, which is in Indiana. And yeah, I think 2025, quick, short little message here. I think 2025 is going to be my breakout year. I've had 2 years to lay the groundwork, kind of get my name a little bit out there, get some good reps, get better in the ring. And I think 2025, I think you're going to be seeing me, but not only me, I think you're going to be seeing this combination right here, this championship and this champion's holder right here, a lot in 2025. So, yeah.
I love it. Good stuff, Tim. Once again, this is Tim Bosby, second to none, the Action Wrestling World Champion. We're going to be right back here on the Spotlight in just a moment. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll be right back.
Big thanks to Tim Bosby for joining us in the Creator Spotlight. Big thanks to Jensen for holding that interview down. I had something I needed to take care of really immediately after we started the interview. So that's why you saw me for literally 30 seconds. And then I ducked out. Something came up and I had to take care of it. And Jensen continued to press forward because Jensen is a professional. All right, guys, appreciate you joining us here today. We'll be back next week. Brand new episode of the Spotlight. We'll be back tomorrow here on Fightful Overbooked. Myself, and we'll see if Joel Pearl returns or doesn't return. Who knows? We'll find out. Tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern to see if Joel Pearl shows up or if he's still too short, Joel. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify if that is where you are listening. Leave a thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you've not done that already. We'll be back next week. We'll be back tomorrow. Check everything out we got going on here at FightfulOverbook.com. Talk to you later.